Hello and welcome to the Libre podcast. I've got a whole bunch of topics that I want to discuss with you guys today. A bunch of topics that originally I was thinking I would just cover them in individual videos like I have been doing. Every morning when I'm eating breakfast and I'm getting ready to go do my farm chores, I'm usually reading about what's going on in the world, and certain things will catch my eye. I'll see, okay, this is something that'll be good to make a video about, but I just haven't had a whole lot of time where I can really sit down and record anything, where I can actually sit down and record and edit those videos that I make for you guys. So the topics, they just kept on piling up more and more until, well, here we are today, where I've got so many in front of me that I said, you know what, why don't we just go ahead and do a podcast? Why don't I just cover all these different things individually? Some of them are related, other ones are not related, and I can give you guys some farm updates. That's been what's taken up a whole lot of my time from being able to make videos on my regular schedule. But you guys already knew about that. You guys knew that I came to Virginia to do some of that feed and seed. So let's start getting into our first topic, which is Malwarebytes labeling other people's anti-spyware programs as malware. So malware, or Malwarebytes, is facing a lawsuit for classifying a rival's anti-spyware program as a threat. Enigma Software Group, they won a crucial case in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, allowing it to proceed with its lawsuit against Malwarebytes for flagging its anti-spyware software as a potentially unwanted program. The lawsuit alleges that Malwarebytes has engaged in anti-competitive conduct under the Lanham Act and tortious interference with Enigma's business. The 2-to-1 split verdict from the Ninth Circuit came after Enigma appealed a 2017 California court. So basically, Enigma has this program called Spy Hunter, where if you have this installed to your computer at the same time that you have Malwarebytes installed, and then you run a Malwarebytes scan, or maybe even the Malwarebytes automated system would flag that program and be like, hey man, this is a Trojan, or this spyware removal tool is actually spyware. Now, a little bit of background of this. Okay, for one, you usually don't want to have more than one antivirus, anti-spyware, anti-malware. I mean, generally the anti-spyware is going to be bundled in with your anti-malware program. And you just usually don't want to have more than one of those on your system at the same time, because in a way, anti-malware programs do kind of act like malware themselves, right? Like, it has to be embedded in your system in such a way where it's pretty much functioning like a rootkit. Anti-malware is going to be one of the first programs that starts up when you start up your computer, and it's going to have administrator privileges. That's why it's able to kill tasks, and it's able to quarantine viruses and actually stop viruses in real time because it has these elevated privileges. And so if you've got two different programs that are trying to do that at the same time, that are trying to do that, anti-malware activity that kind of sort of looks like rootkit activity, then it kind of makes sense that they might interfere with one another and flag each other as viruses. And there's also fake antivirus programs that are commonly loaded with Trojan horses. Like, in fact, this program here, Spy Hunter, it does commonly have Trojan horse clones that are created to impersonate the legit program, which, like I said, pretty much is going to function as a rootkit. So the end user ends up installing something that is a rootkit, and they're like, oh, okay, no, this is just anti-malware. This is to keep me safe. No, it's to further infect your computer. However, this is not me defending Malwarebytes' decision to label certain things as spyware or label certain things as malware. They probably know what they're doing here, right? They're probably purposefully trying to keep people from using different antiviruses or multiple antiviruses on the computer, which honestly you shouldn't be doing that anyway. Okay, it's in fact, in this day and age, it almost doesn't make a whole lot of sense to pay for some additional antivirus. Like, even if you're using Windows, which is the only platform, the only desktop platform that you might really even need antivirus on, Windows Defender is to the point where it's pretty good, right? The number one antivirus is, of course, common sense. Okay, don't click on stupid links that are in your email. Don't click on the very obvious malware. Like, don't fall for the Google Ads malware, right? Like, be careful of the links that you're clicking on. That plus Windows Defender is probably going to take care of like 95% of cases out there. And then if you do end up installing any kind of other antivirus on top of that, then you've got to suffer with these restrictions that they're going to put on you, okay? If they're going to abuse you, right? Anytime you're going to install some kind of proprietary software, they're going to have control over you. Whoever controls that program is going to have control over you. So this is just another example of that for, I don't know, whoever was installing multiple antivirus or multiple anti-spyware programs on their computer. Hey, you're not allowed to do that, okay? You're not really getting any additional security from doing that, but now you're not even allowed to have that false sense of security that you get by seeing all these different security applications on your desktop, because we know the type of person who's installing both of these at the same time also has a desktop flooded with different icons. So seeing those on your desktop maybe gives them peace of mind, but Malwarebytes is not going to allow you to even have that. Same deal with crypto mining, right? Like Norton, they bundled their antivirus with a crypto miner because most antivirus programs are going to, when they see a crypto miner running on your computer, they're like, oh no, this is a virus. There is some legitimacy to this, just like there's some legitimacy to an antivirus blocking other antiviruses, because if a crypto miner is running on someone's computer, there is a good chance that it's malware, right? Like, what are the odds that this person consciously went and downloaded a crypto miner themselves and they're running it? You know, there's a good chance that they clicked on some silly link, you know, they saw hot singles in their area, and they went through a series of nonsense where they ended up installing a crypto miner, and, you know, now their electricity bill is going into the pocket of some hacker, or the profits from that electricity is going into a hacker's pockets. So try to avoid abusive software like this, I guess. Try to grow your digital literacy, because if you honestly do that, you don't really need antivirus in the first place. And you're probably going to realize that programs like this that are giving you this false security by blocking these programs that they don't need to block, you're going to realize that it is indeed false security that they're giving you. The White House is proposing a 30% tax on electricity that is used for crypto mining. The excise tax is supposed to be phased in 3 years. So it says that they want to impose a 30% tax on the electricity used by cryptocurrency mining operations, and it has included the proposal in its budget for the fiscal year of 2024. In a blog post on the White House website, the administration has formally introduced the Digital Asset Mining Energy, or DAME, excise tax. It explains that it wants to tax cryptocurrency firms because they aren't paying for the full cost they impose on others, which include environmental pollution and high energy prices. So it says that it's a tax on firms, so I guess that's referring to larger scale crypto operations. Like, I was looking into that blog post a bit, and it's talking about, well, it was talking about larger scale crypto operations. Like, I think it was talking about how much energy the top 36 of them use and comparing that to other states and cities and stuff. And it's like, oh my God, look at how much electricity the heckin' Bitcoin is using. In practice, the firms probably are going to apply to the larger scale crypto miners, because there's no way you can really apply this to small scale people, like people that just have one single ASIC that's mining Bitcoin. How are you going to know? How are you going to track these people down, right? Like, if you really did, like, okay, like, let's say that the government really did want to try and track down people who are mining, like every single person that's mining cryptocurrency, and make them pay a 30% tax on the electricity. The best way to probably do that would be to partner with the electrical companies to put some kind of power line reader on your electrical meter, right? So there's certain ways that you can tell what people are doing on computers by, I guess, fluctuations in their electricity usage. So you might be able to do that to figure out that people are mining cryptocurrency and then apply some kind of tax. But then again, like, it's how can you tell that it's mining cryptocurrency or that you aren't just running some type of algorithm for some other purpose, right? Like, it's, even then, even if you are doing this power line spying, it's still probably not 100% foolproof to figure out that people are mining cryptocurrency. So again, this is one of those things that in practice you really just can't apply to people. Maybe you can apply it to the big guys, these guys that have these giant warehouses full of Bitcoin mining machines, or not Ethereum mining, but I guess Litecoin, Dogecoin, any other type of cryptocurrency, whatever the hot cryptocurrency is that people are actually mining with proof of work right now. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, people who have the giant warehouses full of those machines will probably end up having to pay this tax. And what that might actually end up doing is decentralizing cryptocurrency even further, these individual cryptocurrencies. Because with Bitcoin, for example, I feel like the mining of it is becoming more and more concentrated into smaller and smaller spaces, right? Especially when the equipment to mine Bitcoin it's not just a general CPU anymore. It's not just a graphics card that you might play games on during the day and then you leave your computer running to mine Bitcoin on it. No, like it's ASICs. ASICs are the only machines that can practically mine Bitcoin. But it's not practical for the everyday person to buy an ASIC, right? It's really only practical if you can benefit from these economies of scale that these firms that I'm going to call that this is probably referring to are doing, where they have thousands of ASICs. They're getting a whole lot of electricity from one area. They might have a better deal in how much they're paying per kilowatt hour, I don't know. Or they might even be generating their own electricity, which it kind of makes you wonder how this tax is going to work for those people. But anyway, they're large-scale operations where they're able to benefit from all these different economies of scale, and that's what makes mining Bitcoin actually profitable for them. But now that they're going to have to pay this 30% tax, it might actually make it more realistic for small scale miners that are able to kind of fly under the radar and mine some Bitcoin or mine some Litecoin without getting caught by the tax man. And yeah, it'll make it more decentralized and it'll make them able to compete. It's probably going to negatively affect the hash rate, just like Bitcoin's hash rate fell when China made it illegal, and it fell when Kazakhstan made mining illegal. Or I think Kazakhstan they just cut off the internet. Or maybe it was a combination of both. I don't remember exactly how that went down because it was like a year and some change ago. But I don't think this is actually going to end up killing Bitcoin or any other proof of work coin because, like I said, when you're a small scale miner, right, if some guy is mining Bitcoin in a 3-car garage, is he going to pay 30% on that? How are you going to prove that he's mining cryptocurrency? Even if you spy on him in some really creepy way, like you end up doing that, power line spying where you're actually checking on his electrical usage at the pole or at the meter that's on his house, he might be able to come up with some other excuse for it. I'm growing pot, man. That's why my power is so high. I'm growing a whole bunch of weed. Oh, okay. Carry on, sir. No 30% tax for you. Or tell them that you're running an internet cafe, right? I'm running a little Fortnite gaming LAN party thing. Oh, okay. Carry on, sir. That is useful use of electricity, not mining fake internet money that makes the IRS upset. No, that's bad. we got to tax you extra for that. But if you're playing Fortnite, if you're playing some heckin' video games, then that's perfectly okay. No extra taxes for you. So this is the blog post where the White House is talking about the Dame tax, making crypto miners pay for the cost they impose on others. Crypto mining is a process for validating transactions among holders of crypto assets to record and transfer cryptographically secured assets on a distributed ledger by, for example, using computers equipped to perform calculations to select the validator. Currently, crypto mining firms do not have to pay for the full cost they impose on others in the form of local environmental pollution, higher energy prices, and the impacts of increased greenhouse gas emissions on the climate. The Dame tax encourages firms to start taking better account of the harms that they impose on society. And then they've got this breakdown here. Okay, so here's the part where it talks about the 34 largest crypto mining operations, which they calculated as equal to the power used by the surrounding 3 million homes. And they've got this figure that shows U.S. crypto, so this is just cryptocurrency mining in the U.S., is estimated to use more electricity than computers, more electricity than fans and pumps, more electricity than freezers, more than clothes washers, and more than dishwashers. But not as much as televisions. Okay, there's more people out there that are watching the heckin' TV lookity box than mining the hecking cryptocurrencies, which is kind of disappointing to me, right? Because everybody talks about crypto, how it's this horrible, oh, it's so bad for the environment. And there is a little bit of an argument to be had there with the electricity usage, especially if the electricity that's being generated is really dirty, right? Like that's the point that I made about Bitcoin being so-called dirty back when the Chinese were the main people who were mining it, because China's power is, well, it's mostly coal generated, or it's much dirtier in total than how the US or how Europe generates its electricity. So, as long as it's being mined with clean power, that's not as bad. But nobody talks about TVs, right? How, oh my God, TVs. All these TV watchers, man, they're hurting the environment. No, nobody ever talks about that. But that's because TV's fun, right? It's not like, cryptocurrency mining where you just have a terminal that's crunching away at some numbers. Crypto miners' high energy consumption has negative spillovers on the environment, quality of life, and electricity grids. Where these firms locate across the country, pollution from electricity generation falls disproportionately on low-income neighborhoods and communities of color. So there you guys go. Crypto mining might be racist, guys. You got to pay a 30% tax on it. That's the only way to deal with it. Oh, and speaking of taxes, we've got this lawsuit against TurboTax that they lost, and now they're paying out. TurboTax is sending checks to 4.4 million customers as part of a $141 million settlement. So this is following a 50-state settlement with the parent company Intuit for allegedly steering millions of low-income Americans away from free tax filing services. Customers affected by the settlement will receive an email about the settlement, and checks will automatically be mailed throughout this month. Most customers will get about $30, with some customers that use TurboTax for 3 consecutive years getting up to $85. A website has also been set up for more information. TurboTax's predatory and deceptive marketing cheated millions of low-income Americans who were trying to fulfill their legal duties to file their taxes, said New York Attorney General in a press release. Today, we are righting that wrong and putting money back into the pockets of hard-working taxpayers who should have never had to pay to file their taxes. I really don't even understand why a lot of low-income people have to file taxes at all. When you pay your taxes and you make less than, let's call it $40K a year, you're probably getting a tax refund, right? Which means from the government, sorry, we took too much of your money all year. You know, we bent you over and screwed you a little bit too hard. So here's some of your money back. How about this? How about we just cut out all of the paperwork and the government just cut these people a check in the springtime, right? You know that they overpaid, especially if they have a W-2, right? That's the part that is especially stupid. People who have W-2s, why are they paying taxes? Okay, the government knows how much money you make all year. The taxes are already taken out of your paycheck, okay? You're basically just entering in numbers from your W-2, you know, your employer identification number and a couple of things like that. It doesn't make any sense, okay? And unless you're somebody who's like paying your taxes at the end of the year, I don't get why these people have to pay taxes. It's so annoying. I did that for years and it just always annoyed me. I don't understand why we do that. Our tax system is so weird and stupid. And because it is so weird and stupid and complicated, these companies like TurboTax are able to prey on people. Because I bet you the majority of people that are going to be getting these checks from TurboTax are pretty much the people that I just described. They're making $40K a year or less, and most or all of their income is on a W-2. So these are people who shouldn't even have to worry about taxes because, like I said, the government is already taking their taxes already. All right, let's start talking about these AI regulations and these proposed AI regulations. Last month, Biden met with Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI CEOs to discuss the dangers of AI. Oh no, millions of people have begun using these tools, which supporters say can make medical diagnoses, they can write screenplays, they can create legal briefs, they can even debug your software, leading to growing concerns about how the technology could lead to privacy violations, skew employment decisions, and power scams and misinformations. Okay, so privacy violations. The government is kind of the main person responsible for privacy violations. Okay, the NSA is probably the number one organization responsible for privacy violations. So we're gonna let, more or less these same people tell us how to regulate AI to avoid these privacy concerns. Okay, that doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense. Biden, who has used ChatGPT and experimented with it, okay, doubt. I doubt. I want to see Biden's ChatGPT folder. Okay, I don't think this man legitimately experimented with it, or I want to see his his stable diffusion folder. They say he experimented with ChatGPT, but we know what Biden does with stable diffusion. Okay, anyway. Enough joking on the Biden. Who has used ChatGPT and experimented with it. He told officials they must mitigate current and potential risks AI proposes to individual society and national security, the White House said. Okay, now I legitimately wonder what Biden saw. You know what probably happened? Because ChatGPT and all these AIs, they basically scrape the internet for information, right? So I wonder if he used a version that hadn't been, made politically correct or whatever, and he probably just asked it what it thinks about him. And it's like, I think you're a creepy old dude that likes to sniff little girls or that, is always falling down or something. He's like, is your hip made of adamantium? You've fallen down so many times and yet you haven't died. What's going on here? Back in the fall, the White House produced this blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, which is, just special in its tone there. Among great challenges posed to democracy today is the use of technology, data, and automated systems in ways that threaten the rights of the American people. Too often, these tools are used to limit our opportunities and prevent our access to critical resources or services. These problems are well documented in America and around the world. Systems supposed to help with patient care have proven unsafe, ineffective, or biased. Algorithms used in hiring and credit decisions have been found to reflect and reproduce existing unwanted inequities or embed new harmful bias and discrimination. The AI can't be racist. Very important. Unchecked social media data collection has been used to threaten people's opportunities, undermine their privacy, or pervasively track their activity, often without their knowledge or consent. Again, why is the government talking about tracking people's activities without their consent? That's what you do. That's what you do. Okay? This is like, this is the most ridiculous thing. There is no other example of ridiculousness I can make, because the government trying to talk about how to, prevent people undermining your privacy is the most ridiculous irony that's possible. Anyway, these outcomes are deeply harmful, but they are not inevitable. Automated systems have brought about extraordinary benefits, from technology that help farmers grow food more efficiently and computers that predict storm paths to algorithms that can identify diseases in patients. These tools now drive important decisions across sectors, while data is helping to revolutionize global industries, fueled by the power of American innovation. These tools hold the potential to redefine every part of our society and make life better for everyone. This important progress must not come at the price of civil rights or democratic values, foundational American principles that President Biden has affirmed as a cornerstone of his administration. On his first day in office, the president ordered the full federal government to work to root out inequity, embed fairness in decision-making. Okay, yeah, and then we're just getting into stuff that's not necessarily just related to AI. There's going to be some goofy regulations coming forward from people that can barely even understand how to check their email, let alone how to use ChatGPT. Okay, I got to look up later the video of Biden attempting to use ChatGPT, because there's no way. So that's obviously AI regulations that are looming at the federal level, but there's already AI laws being made at the state level. So deepfake porn, election misinformation, they're moving closer to becoming crimes in the state of Minnesota. The Senate removed exceptions for parodies and satire from the bill before approving it on a near unanimous vote on Wednesday. So using artificial intelligence to create sexual images of people without their consent, or for spreading election disinformation, would be a crime in Minnesota under a bill moving closer to becoming state law. The Minnesota Senate on Wednesday, May 10th, advanced a bill amid fighting the misuse of deepfakes, realistic artificial intelligence generated video, images, and sound portraying people saying and doing things that they've never done. Man, I'm gonna be illegal in Minnesota, you guys. I can't use my deepfake there. That sucks. Oh well, guess I can't go to Minnesota. The often convincing images. Not really. I have not seen that many convincing deepfakes. But anyway, the often convincing images have vastly proliferated on the internet in recent years, prompting alarm among ethics and political observers who worry about their potential for election manipulation and harassment. Deepfake technology has the power to damage reputations, ruin lives, and even threaten the integrity of our democracy, says the bill's sponsor, Senator Aaron Quaid. The advancement of AI has been incredibly fast, Quaid continued. 5 years ago, it would have taken a lot of money, time, and producing studio to create a realistic AI depiction. Minnesota wouldn't be the first to introduce new laws regulating the use of AI-generated fakes. California and Texas already have laws on the books. So you see, guys, it's a state issue, right? Just like pot and guns and everything else, now your heckin' AI waifu might not be legal if you cross state lines. You gotta go somewhere where your waifu is legal. House bill language provided an exception for sexual imagery deepfakes that are parody, satire, commentary, criticism, or have political or news value. I cannot think of any exception that there should be in our laws for distributing deepfake sexual imagery, Quaid said on the Senate floor. Now, the whole reason that they're focusing on porn is because, of course, this, generative AI technology, just like most technology that man creates, is primarily used to create porn. Okay, that's just how man evolves. Every single advancement that we have in technology, or major advancement, is either to kill one another or to come, okay? That's what we do. We like to kill and we like to come. About 96% of deepfakes found online are pornographic in nature, May Quaid said. The technology to produce images and sound can be available for free, and casual users can access some of the cruder deepfake generators with relative ease. My goodness, we've got to stop it, you guys. We got to stop the AI smut. Minnesota already has a statute prohibiting revenge porn or the non-consensual distribution of private sexual images, but House Bill sponsor Zach Stevenson said the current law would likely not apply to pornographic deepfakes. Under the bill, it would be a gross misdemeanor to distribute without consent altered images of a person as being naked or engaging in a sexual act when the person was not actually naked or engaging in sex. People depicted in sexual deepfakes could also sue the creators for damages and to have the images taken down from the internet. The bill would also establish a felony penalty for knowingly posting a pornographic deepfake to a website, disseminating it for profit, using it to harass a person, or if it's a repeat offense. With widespread support from both parties, it's likely that the deepfake bill will reach the governor's desk by the end of the legislative session on May 22nd. And I couldn't find any information as far as whether or not it passed. The bill does allow prosecutors to charge people with up to 5 years in prison and $10,000 in fines for disseminating deep fakes. So, yeah, I assume that would probably be for habitual offenders. Like that's the maximum sentence. But man, that's pretty crazy. That just math, and it's not like it's pictures of someone that's being exploited, right? Like I make a clear distinction between that and between deepfakes. Like with a deepfake, you're not exploiting anybody, you're not abusing anybody, you're running a program on your computer. So it's really hard for me to come up with any like reason to really criminalize that, right? Like I can't think of how this would be really that harmful. And yeah, some people fall for stuff like what people fell for some of those deepfake pictures of Donald Trump getting arrested, and what was it, like the Pope wearing a big like puff up jacket. People were like, oh my God, why does the Pope look like a rapper? But I feel like if you really look at these images, like you could tell they're fake. And it's not really much different than all the other pictures of fake crap that we've seen on the internet over the years. Like so many things. Like I remember seeing pictures of like these giant skeletons and like fake, Bigfoot and aliens and, all kinds of like supernatural stuff, right? Supernatural, or what do they call them? Like cryptids, like crypto, animals, right? These like skinwalkers and stuff like that. This stuff's all over the internet. There's all kinds of like fake pictures and stuff where people are making that. And it's not a real problem. It's only when it's AI generated that all of a sudden it's a problem. And I'm not sure why. Is it because now it's easier for people? Like you don't have to become an expert in Photoshop or, photo fakery. Now you can just fire up a prompt generator and copy and paste a whole bunch of words, and then you can generate your AI waifu. I mean, I'm not on board with this, man. I'm really not on board with a lot of the AI regulations. Seems like a fugazi. Like this, the OpenAI CEO calls for laws to mitigate risks of increasingly powerful AI. You see, what this looks like to me is these guys already made a whole lot of money off of AI when there weren't a whole lot of regulations, and now they're like, oh, wait. We need to regulate AI. We can't just let anybody create an AI and do stuff. That's crazy, man. You gotta jump through all these hoops. You gotta get a license to create a prompt generator thing. You can't just go out there and produce it or let anybody produce one of these things, or you can't just let anybody use one, right? You need a license to create one of these prompts, and you need another license to use one of them. No, they're just trying to pull up the ladder so that other people who want to create one of these to make a whole bunch of money for themselves can't do it. The CEO of OpenAI, the company responsible for creating artificial intelligence chatbot ChatGPT and image generator DALL-E 2, said regulation of AI is essential as he testified in his first appearance in front of U.S. Congress. We think that regulatory intervention by governments will be crucial to mitigate the risks of increasingly powerful models, Altman said in his prepared remarks. Altman suggested the U.S. government might consider licensing and testing requirements for development and release of AI models. See, I didn't even read this, right? I knew what this was going to be about, and I didn't even read this like prior to recording this podcast. Like, I just knew. I've seen this so many times, okay? Like, my pattern recognition is able to pick up on this. Like, it's ridiculous to me that people fall for it. Like, no, these CEOs that are worth billions of dollars that are asking the government to regulate stuff, that's just so that you can't compete with them. All right? These guys, they're able to meet those regulations, okay? They're able to have their factories or whatever it is. You know, in this case of ChatGPT and AI, you're probably not going to have factories, but they're able to have their offices comply with all the regulations. They're going to be able to provide their workers health care. They're going to be able to provide them all the amenities that they need. But you, someone who doesn't have billions of dollars in capital, who's just trying to get started, you might not be able to do that. All right, you might need to hire some dude off the street to code an AI in exchange for some sandwiches before you can pay him some money, or you might not be able to give him some health care. That's a little bit of a ridiculous example, but you guys know what I mean, okay? When super rich guys that made a whole lot of money off of something before there was regulations is going to the government and saying, hey guys, we need some more regulations, that's a fugazi, okay? They're just trying to make it so that you can't compete with them. He proposed establishing a set of safety standards and a specific test model would have to pass before they can be deployed. So there you go. If your model can't pass this test, then no, you're not allowed to publish it, as well as allowing independent auditors to examine the models before they are launched. He also argued existing frameworks like Section 230, which releases platforms for liability for the content its users post, would not be the right way to regulate the system. For a very new technology, we need a new framework, Altman said. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not against all regulation all of the time, but when you've got the Altman, okay, when you've got this dude who already made a whole bunch of money off of AI, he was like the first guy to strike gold, and now he's trying to pull up the ladder, okay, it's going to be real hard to get me on board with some of these AI regulations. Okay, here's another AI topic that's a little bit less doomy and gloomy. A video shows police yelling at a driverless Waymo taxi to stop it from running over a fire hose. Why didn't the officer shoot the car? That'd be hilarious. That's going to be the day that I see an officer mag dump a driverless vehicle for like whatever reason. That's going to be the funniest video. That's going to be the funniest police video that I've ever seen. All right, so let's go ahead and watch this video together.
No, I'm going to pop a flare so it doesn't move and run over the water. 4 at him.
Yeah, so it looks like homie's flare is not working very well.
Got a bit of a pickle. I got an autonomous vehicle, the Waymo. It's inching slowly and closely to the one of the main water.
We got a bit of an autonomous pickle in the middle of the road. This autonomous pickle is trying to take over.
That the SF fire just charged. Can't run it over. Is there a way you could contact like a responsible to come out and disable this vehicle?
Can you get the robot's dad to come out? Sir, your son is playing in the middle of traffic and we're trying to save the city by putting out this fire.
I don't trust this AI.
I mean, hey, I'm with you there, man. I'm with you there.
Self-driving. Where we're at now. Technology.
Yeah, the officers are gonna have to get trained on these. Like, there must be some way to disable these that they just don't know.
California 53596 Frank 3. Pop the flare. Hopefully the smoke will try to disable it, but looks like no dice.
Yeah, you need. I think you need some kind of physical barrier, because I doubt smoke. Just a little bit of smoke would stop an autonomous vehicle. I'm pretty sure they can see through smoke and fog and all that stuff. That's, you know, supposed to be one of the advantages of these. I like to imagine that they're on the phone with, like, Indian tech support. Like, Waymo outsources their tech support to India like every other company. And they're like, thank you for waiting, sir. Oh, shit. Okay, let's not do an Indian accent and get the Libre podcast banned on the second episode.
No!
It's hilarious, though.
No!
Oh, yeah, and then this dude, this idiot's like, can I go? Can I drive over the hose? Pretty please? Can I make a turn onto this hose? Is that okay? How many officers does it take to disable an autonomous taxi?
He's gonna take remote access?
Yes, he's gonna call.
Okay, so it sounds like they found somebody. They found a responsible. They got in touch with the robot's dad. He's like, is my son playing in traffic again? I told him to stop doing that. So if Waymo is an autonomous taxi, that means that they beat Tesla.
Sweet.
They beat Tesla to make the autonomous taxi. Oh wow, they're running that hose a long ways. That's the nearest hydrant, I guess. It's like halfway down the block to where the truck is. Or maybe they're not, I don't know. Maybe it's somewhere else. I can't tell where the fire is. Okay, yeah, I think it's down that way. I think I see smoke. Yeah, that's a long ways that they're running that hose, it seems like. It's like the fire is as far away from the hydrant as it possibly could be. Oh, and everyone's filming the cops. How many people's social media was this posted on? How many cops does it take to disable an autonomous vehicle?
Cool.
2 minutes out.
Their Waymo is still there. So is someone gonna, like, remotely drive it somewhere else, or does someone have to come out?
I just live down the block.
Hang out, get some coffee, hang out until fire PG&E deems it safe.
Okay, so
Yeah.
should I go that way or this way?
It's up to you, as long as it's not in that little hot red zone area right there.
So the red zone area is
It's right around there. I can go up here if you want. Yeah, get something to eat, hang out. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, anytime, sir.
Yeah, this is like, I mean, look, I'm not an emergency responder, but this seems like the worst place to have this, because like you're basically closing down this intersection. Like, is there nowhere else that a hydrant could have been? They're really using it though. I mean, that thing's been it's been full of water for a while now, so I mean, I guess it's best that everybody gets where they're going like 10 minutes late than, people burning. Let's see.
Go for item 4, Adam.
Is this the guy that's going to take the car? Is this the
The flare didn't work.
is this the car's dad?
Hope would work somehow to turn, but
Yeah, they need to get like, I mean, obviously the smoke didn't work, and anyone who kind of knows these could have probably predicted that because, of course, the driverless sensors are able to go through smoke and fog. Like, if smoke would stop one of these things, they would not be able to even function in, like, California or whatever city this is in because of the smog and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, they probably need, like, some kind of special cones or something that they can place up to keep a driverless car from going places. That's going to become even more important as driverless cars become more common, is a cone that's got maybe some type of QR codes or some type of thing on it that's maybe like an RFID, something that gives off a signal so that a AI that's driving these cars can really know, like, okay, this is where a barrier is, because that's going to happen. Like, I really strongly believe that we're going to get to a point where there's going to be probably highways first that are autonomous vehicles only, right? So if you want to go on this highway, just like how you go on an on-ramp to a highway, while you're on that on-ramp, you're going to have to hit the switch to turn on your car's AI, and then, that's the only way you're going to be allowed to go on there. And it'll probably be higher speed and stuff like that. But whenever people are doing construction on those roads, or they're doing any type of repairs, like putting down new paint, anything like that, anytime a car breaks down, you're going to have to get these cones that the AI is really able to see to just separate them and keep them from crashing into people. And cops are going to need that too. I mean, cops are really going to be the ones who need it because they're first responders.
barricades, a blockade zone.
I don't know about you, but I would be getting in front of a robot.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of
Well,
time, dude.
I told my dispatch I don't trust his AI.
Okay, so this is just another random civ.
Cyber die. Skynet's awake. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I mean, the cop sounds pretty based in red pilled on tech. He doesn't trust it. They're getting a tow truck for it?
I'll try to do the smoke. And I says, hey, stop. He listened.
Okay. Alright, so that's the guy. This dude in our reflective vest, this guy, looks like he's our guy. Or is that just the tow truck guy? I think that's just the tow truck guy. I don't know. I mean, would a driverless vehicle, maintenance person dude wear a reflective vest? I don't know. Oh, my internet can't handle this video, guys.
Thank you. This is 2.0. Yep. So,
Okay, it's done. Yeah, I mean that's a new challenge that I guess police have to face is wrangling autonomous vehicles during fires. All right, next topic I've got written down, ads in Windows settings. I actually made a video about this already, but let's just take some time to reflect on the fact that there are people out there using an operating system for all of their daily activities, work, school, play, that shows them ads in the settings menu, shows them ads in the start menu, it shows them ads on the lock screen. How did we get to the point where the most used desktop operating system on the planet has more ads than the free version of apps that you download from the Google Play Store. And speaking of Google, they have been putting more ads in Gmail. Now they're showing up right in the middle of your inboxes. Accidental clicks on ads are way up. Google knows exactly what they are doing here with putting these ads in the middle of your inboxes. And it's going to lead to more malvertising. This is like one of the new methods. Well, it's not entirely new, but it seems like there's more and more cases every day that I'm seeing of it, where hackers are getting these malicious ads from Google or from Facebook or from whoever, and they know how they show up, right? Like they know how the Google search ads work. That's the most common malvertising that they're using. But it could be just as easy for them to get a malicious ad to show up in Gmail and make it look like it's a legitimate email and get a whole lot of people to click on it, and boom. And now you're serving them malware, and Google is going to have some responsibility for this. I mean, they're not going to end up paying anything. They're not going to pay any fines. They don't ultimately care that you're getting hacked through just not really paying good attention to what's going on in your Gmail. But again, this is why you've got to increase your digital literacy, because these companies that have basically built out the internet, or not really built out the internet, but built out so many of these communities that have become super popular on the internet. Most of the traffic on the internet is just coming from a few sites, right? So these companies that are controlling these sites, they are purposefully trying to make it so that you don't understand technology, okay? They want you to be like a dumb animal, like a dumb cow, so that they can control you. They could just put you in a pen and they can milk you because you don't have any type of digital literacy, okay? That's why this is on you. You've got to increase your digital literacy, because these companies like Google are going to exploit you through Gmail. These companies like Facebook or like Meta, forgot that they renamed themselves, even though they're not actually going to build out the metaverse. That's something that happened. Yeah, Facebook, they went all into Meta and in the metaverse, but then they decided, you know what, actually, we're not going to do that. This whole metaverse thing is dumb. Instead, we're just going to go back to what we do best, which is spying on people. WhatsApp accused of using microphone constantly on smartphones. The company says that a bug is displaying incorrect privacy information on Android phones. The issue has been festering for weeks, but it has now morphed into a full-blown privacy debacle for the messaging app. On Tuesday, Elon Musk tweeted that WhatsApp cannot be trusted. Here it is right here, guys. WhatsApp cannot be trusted, and he's retweeting something that, what was this? Was this like a Twitter engineer or something like this? Made the incendiary statement in response to a viral tweet from a Twitter staffer. Yes, so this is somebody who works at Twitter who posted this screenshot from their notifications on WhatsApp. Okay, so it's showing at 6:25 a.m. WhatsApp is using the microphone. 5:59 a.m. WhatsApp is using the microphone for 2 minutes, and here it was doing it for 26 minutes. 4:45 a.m. WhatsApp on the microphone for, I don't know, I guess less than a minute. 4:41, 14 minutes. So what is going on here, okay? Is it listening to you in your sleep, okay? Is this like the telly screens from 1984? They're listening for you to chant, down with Big Brother in your sleep. Is that what's going on here? It's really, really spooky when probably the most commonly used, the most common messaging application in the world, because it's installed on over 1 billion people's phones, has a bug, air quotes with bug, where the microphone is kicking on at random times in the middle of the night. Now, part of the reason that I think Elon is tweeting this, that he's jumping on this bandwagon, is he also tweeted on May 9th about, well, he was announcing encrypted DMs 1.0 on Twitter, that they would be coming the next day. Now, he didn't specifically say that these DMs would be end-to-end encrypted, but he says that the acid test for encrypted DMs should be that he shouldn't be able to see them even if there was a gun to his head. And he also says that voice and video chat from your handle to anyone else on the platform should be coming soon without you having to give people your phone number. So Elon is pretty much offering up Twitter as, I guess, a platform to replace WhatsApp. I mean, what if all of these features are implemented, what does WhatsApp do that Twitter is not able to do at that point? And as far as the big tech CEOs go, at least in my eyes, I think Elon might be one of the least spooky, or not least spooky ones, but probably least spooky out of the Zuck and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, right? Like out of all these guys that are, running or, well, not necessarily running as CEOs, but they're on the boards still of Bezos is still on the board for Amazon and Gates is still on the board for Microsoft. And of course, they were founders of the companies as well. So they still have a whole lot of influence, okay? Don't get it twisted just because there's different CEOs. But Elon seems not quite as spooky as some of those other guys are. But, the fact that he wants to centralize everything within Twitter, like he basically wants to turn Twitter into literally an everything app. I mean, he said that before or not Twitter, but he said that he wants to have an everything app. That's gonna be real spooky, man, where you're gonna be controlling all the data for everything goes through Elon's app, the same guy that wants to, have this Neuralink and put a literal chip in your head. How about the everything app runs off of the Neuralink? So everything that's out there in the internet and then also everything in your head is controlled by something made by Elon Musk, right? Are you able to see the potential problems here? Is it clear to you, or is it clear why people are concerned about things like this? But still, I'm going to welcome a less spooky alternative than WhatsApp for talking to or talking to normies. And then the other day, there was this post I saw from the BBC that people in India are getting spam calls on WhatsApp from countries in Southeast Asia and Africa. Wow, this is a heck of a twist, right? The past 2 times that we talked about WhatsApp spam, I'm pretty sure it was Indians that were responsible for the spam. I know that the good morning text spam, that was blame on Indians, although I still consider that to be pretty wholesome. Sending good morning text with a bunch of sparkly goose gifs like you're customizing a MySpace page back in the late 90s is very based indeed. And the fact that the entire world's internet connection gets a little bit slower every morning India wakes up, that's just hilarious to me. I love it. I love it. When the Patel family awakens, the underseas internet cables will feel their good morning text. But now the tables have turned and the rest of the world is saying good morning to India. So a whole lot of these spam calls are actually scam calls, of course, which again is pretty ironic considering that so many of these scam call centers are in India. Okay, we've seen Kitboga, we've seen the various people out there. There's like dozens of spin-offs of people that talk to these tech support scammers. And sometimes they scam them back. Sometimes they hack them. And so often these guys are in India. So yeah, they're getting scammed from, I guess, other call centers that are in Southeast Asia or in Africa. Starting to sound a little bit like karma. And then there's also calls that are coming from people that are running e-commerce platforms. So I guess that those are people that are trying to spamvertise their online stores. And speaking of online stores, I want to tell you guys about Based.win, my online store where I sell my own branded merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, sleeveless tees, and tank tops for you chads that want to show off your gains this summer. I've got merch for the ladies too, tote bags for when you go shopping, those can be used by men or ladies, and electronics accessories like chargers, cables, and signal blocking bags. Put your electronics or your credit cards in one of those and nobody is going to be able to scan them. Best of all, my store accepts over 12 different cryptocurrencies, including Monero XMR. You can also receive store-wide discounts when shopping with Monero, Bitcoin, or Ethereum. If you don't have crypto, it's no problem. I also accept major credit cards. Check out what I got for sale at based.win. That's BASED.WIN. So it looks like India found one really extreme solution to their WhatsApp problem. They just became the first democracy to ban encrypted messaging apps on a massive scale. And they did this just a few days before Press Freedom Day. How ironic. And you guys are never gonna guess the reason that they used for this. I'll give you a hint. They're not protecting the children this time. I know, it's a shock. We've got to stop end-to-end encrypted or encrypted messaging apps because of terrorists. The heckin' terrorists, man. So in India, apps including Briar, Element, and Threema got blocked beginning of May based on the arguments that these apps would be used by terrorists and that these apps would not have a representative for government contact based in India. However, it more looks like a strategic decision to stop Indian people from using secure and anonymous messaging apps. This makes India the first democracy to follow in the footsteps of authoritarian governments like Iran and Russia. So let's see, I think we've got a list of these apps here. So according to the Indian Express, 14 mobile applications that provided end-to-end encryption, messaging services, or enabled peer-to-peer messaging, namely WickerMe, Mediafire, Briar, BChat, Nanbox, Conion, IMO, Element, Second Line, Zangi, Threema, CryptVisor, Enigma, and Safe Swiss were blocked in India following the recommendation of the Ministry of Home Affairs beginning of May. These apps have been blocked under Section 69A of the Indian Information Technology Act 2000. The 14 apps were banned because they were being used by terrorists and their supporters in Jammu and Kashmir, according to central intelligence agencies in India. A source told the Indian Express that the intelligence agencies also informed the MHA that most of these apps are designed to provide anonymity to their users, and their features make it tough to resolve the entities associated with them. These mobile apps aid the terrorist and their affiliates to engage in activities which are prejudicial to sovereignty and integrity of India and can disturb peace and harmony. The block included free software apps such as Briar and Element, which are now banned in India. The reason the officials give for justifying the ban is that these apps would not have any representatives in India and cannot be contacted for seeking information as mandated by the Indian laws. Yeah, that's the whole point. They're free and open source apps that don't have some spook behind them that controls them, that can all of a sudden spy on people because, oh no, there's the heckin' terrorist. Yeah, look, okay. As an American, all right, India, I know that the heckin' terrorist excuse is a fugazi most of the time, okay? We invented the heckin' terrorist excuse. We invented the war on terror, okay? We invented the concept of spying on people in order to prevent heckin' terrorism, something that probably kills fewer people per year than, or at least in America, than like snake bites. I don't know. I mean, there's probably more terrorism in India because you guys actually have land borders with some of the places where the heckin' terrorizers come from. But, okay, on the grand scale of things, okay, I'm not going to look this up now, but I'm just going to put it out there, right? What is my source? I fucking guessed, okay? That's my source for this. I think terrorism is a relatively small problem in India, okay? You probably have more people dying from, like, I don't know, slipping and falling in the bath or in the shower than dying from terrorism, okay, in India. That's my stat that I'm not even going to look up, that I'm just going to put out there. So is it that serious that we need to spy on everyone in India and that we have to shut down every end-to-end encrypted app to stop the terrorizers? Is it really that serious of a problem? Element already published a statement regarding the issue, explaining that they do reply to Indian government requests. While Element never compromises end-to-end encryption or user privacy, we have been contacted by Indian authorities in the past and addressed them in a constructive fashion, typically responding same day. Yeah, so they give you what you got, or what they got. I imagine it's the same as Signal, which I don't see Signal mentioned in this, but we know that, like, when the feds press Signal for information on their users, they provide it. It's just the only information that Signal has is when you created your account and the last time you signed in. That's the only information that we store about our users. This statement makes India's argumentation on why the block was necessary look less convincing. Oh, you don't say. It would be very worrisome if India, as the first democratically elected government, goes down the same path as authoritarian governments like Iran and Russia, where encrypted communication tools are blocked on a massive scale already. Well, India might be the first democracy to do this, but trust me, there's a lot of other democracies that would love to do this, okay? The US would love to do this. The US has already proposed banning encryption or backdooring encryption like 5 times in the past year. Australia's got a thing where the federal police are able to take over apps, and they're able to give gag orders to the app's developer where they're not even able to tell people that they've taken over the app. So it really doesn't matter whether someone is a democracy or not. It really boils down to, again, digital literacy, right? I know I sound like a broken record, but you know, as that I can't remember his name, but it's like a meme where this guy was talking about the flaw with democracy, and he says it's of the people, by the people, for the people, and then there's a long pause. But the people are retarded. That's what I think of whenever it comes to democracy with technology law, because so many people choose, right? At this point, it's a choice to be so illiterate about technology, okay? These computers have been around since the 60s, okay? They were used to put a man on the moon, right? And there's more computing power in a pocket calculator than all of the computers combined that put a man on the moon. But the fact still remains that these computers were around for 60 some odd years, okay? So the fact that people don't understand them is, it's really on you at this point, okay? There's no excuse. It's almost like being illiterate in modern day, okay? If somebody told you that they're illiterate in modern day, which does happen, right? Even in first world countries like America, there's some people who, I don't know, they had to work in a coal mine or something like that when they were a kid. And so they weren't in school when the teachers were teaching how to read, and, you know, that just kept getting kicked down the road. You know, they kept working in coal mines, or they kept falling on hard times and couldn't catch up with time to read. And hey, now they're, 45 years old and they're trying to like order a donut or something, or order a coffee, but they can't read the menu. It does happen, right? Floyd Mayweather, that's an example, although he's like super rich, right? He might be the richest illiterate person of all time, right? The most wealthy illiterate person. Actually, no, probably not. There were probably a bunch of people back in the day that are like super rich but couldn't read. Anyway, the technological literacy is important, because if we have a democracy of tech illiterate people, then it's only a matter of time until the people who are in control, who, also don't understand how this technology works, or maybe they do understand how it works and they just want to exploit you, are going to exploit you. So, yeah, India, if you have an option to, I guess, vote against this, you need to vote to bring back your encryption, right? Encryption brings safety, like it says right here. These governments tend to neglect that encryption brings safety to all of us. We must not take privacy away from citizens, as that would make the web, as such, completely insecure. Absolutely true. Now, I guess the good thing is it's effectively impossible to prevent people from using a lot of these apps, at least the decentralized ones like Element or Briar, because they're peer-to-peer. India has been cracking down on a lot of the apps that you're allowed to have on your phone, I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to end up creating some kind of black market app store, or really just a third-party app store, like increase people installing those. Because on Android, it's already pretty easy to sideload an app or to install F-Droid or the Aurora store. So those are like third-party app stores. And that'll allow you to install stuff that's not available in the Play Store, and you can install stuff without even having a Google account. So that's going to be something that's pretty hard to enforce, especially for the sirs in India that are tech savvy enough to do everything that I just talked about with sideloading. Now, the banning of Chinese apps is almost understandable in wake of this news, where an ex-ByteDance employee, that's the company that created TikTok, claims that China had supreme access to all data. So the CCP had access to this data that's on ByteDance's servers, including servers in the United States. This is what the former employer who's bringing a wrongful termination lawsuit is alleging. The allegations in the lawsuit, which ByteDance denies and has vowed to contest, come at a time of intense scrutiny within the US and other Western nations over what level of control, if any, Beijing is able to exert over TikTok and the social media app's widely popular content. What's this dude's name? Yin Tao. Okay, Roger. Roger Yu filed a lawsuit of wrongful termination against ByteDance in Superior Court in San Francisco earlier this month. He says he worked at the company from August 2017 to November 2018 as a head of engineering for U.S. operations. In a new complaint filed on Friday, Yu claimed that the Chinese Communist Party had a special office in the company, sometimes referred to as the Committee, which monitored ByteDance and guided how it advanced core communist values. The committee maintains supreme access to all the company's data, even data stored in the United States, the complaint obtained by CNN read. Yu's lawsuits allege that the company made user data accessible to the Chinese Communist Party via a backdoor channel, no matter where the data was located. Yeah, so this just confirms what I think we were all thinking about TikTok, what we all knew about TikTok by now, that it is indeed a tool used by the CCP to influence and spy on people outside of China. The influence thing, I think, is the most obvious because when you compare what shows up on people's TikToks in the US and then what shows up on the Chinese version of TikTok, the spying, it just makes it really obvious, right? Like there's so much more, I guess, degenerate. Like that's the only thing I can think of to describe it. There's all this like sexualized stuff and just all this like really dumb, low IQ stuff that's promoted on Western TikTok, but then Chinese TikTok, because China is really concerned with like their youth in a way, right? Like they limit how much video games they're able to play. Apparently in Chinese schools, they have these things where they do like school-wide exercise a couple of times a day. And of course, like Chinese kids, they go to school a whole lot more than Western kids do. So they don't want them like looking at the Western version of TikTok and I guess having their minds rotted by all of this ridiculous stuff. So yeah, like that part of TikTok, the duality of Chinese TikTok, I forget what it's called. It goes under a different name, but the duality of that with Western TikTok and American TikTok is probably the most obvious thing to me, that this is a tool the Chinese are using to manipulate people. And the spying should be suspected by anybody who has seen the list of permissions that TikTok, that the app wants to have on your phone. Any app with that many permission requests and is absolutely proprietary, like the source code is not open. So when they talk about this backdoor, right? If TikTok was open source, we could very easily verify whether or not there was a backdoor that's sending data over an encrypted channel to China or to any number of proxies, right? I mean, with this, Belt and Road Initiative, where China is basically building infrastructure in other countries all over the world, mainly in Africa, they could very easily set up internet infrastructure in these African countries as well and basically use those as proxies to siphon off information from Western countries. So that way, if you're doing network analysis, oh, well, your data's not going to China. It's going to this totally legit data center that we built in Africa that's, so progressive and for everybody, right? They're just going to route it to there. And then they'll route it to China because then they control that data center so they can kind of hide where stuff is going a little bit better. If an app is proprietary, there's no way that you can verify whether or not they have these backdoors in them. And the fact that TikTok is now the most popular social media app on the planet and controlled by a Chinese company, which means by proxy controlled by the CCP, that's really just the cherry on top of the giant ice cream sundae of spookiness that is proprietary social media apps, okay? Like, how different is it with Facebook? If we go through their apps, we've got WhatsApp, which is weirdly listening to people in the middle of the night through their microphone. You've got Facebook Messenger. That isn't private. Of course, Facebook itself isn't private, and nobody's even on there other than boomers and very rural people, as it turns out. If you want to be a farmer, you kind of got to go on Facebook. Instagram isn't private, even though a lot of predators seem to think that it is private because Instagram is also the number one application that predators are using. That's a study that came out recently. And, I kind of suspected that Instagram had a bunch of pedos on it because every time I watch these predator catching channels, these like Chris Hansen spin-off things, it always seems like the decoys are on Instagram. That's like the main place where they're catching these guys. So yeah, but anyway, like even though predators are on there, Instagram is absolutely not private. I think a lot of people, probably not the majority, but a lot of people are aware that every company that's been created or acquired by Mark Zuckerberg is effectively a data mining company. So I don't know why anyone is really so surprised when this information came out that TikTok is harvesting data for the Chinese communists, okay? That's kind of the whole point of these social media apps, okay? The ones in the West, they're harvesting it. Well, not even necessarily for the West, because I don't think America has quite as much corporate control over these companies as China does. In a lot of ways, it almost seems like it's the other way around, right? So, in the West, it's more corporations that are harvesting your data. And then in China, it's the Chinese that are harvesting it. The Chinese Communist Party that's harvesting your data. And the main thing that it's being used for when it comes to spying, because when I talk about the Chinese spying on people, or when we talk about that in general, a lot of people seem to think it's spying on citizens, right? Kind of like the US does. But I don't think that's the main thing the Chinese are interested in, right? Like what you do every day, okay, the type of, waifus that you're downloading, I don't think the Chinese are most interested in that. What they're interested in is intellectual property, okay, because so much of their stuff that they design, like their drones, their aircraft, like basically all Chinese military equipment for the past like 40 years is basically bootleg shit that they like ripped off from American companies, right? Like they get, it used to be that they have to send spies. They probably still do this, right? They send spies from China into the US, and sometimes these guys will be embedded for years and years, right? Like they'll go to American colleges and they'll get educated, and then they'll go work for some big tech company, and secretly they're a Chinese spy that's stealing all of this stuff. Well, that's another thing that this ByteDance employee is claiming, is that the company is stealing content from competitors in earlier days, and that it's being used to siphon off data from, I guess, corporate people, right? Like you're a corporate person, you've got TikTok on your phone, and then you're in a meeting and you're discussing top secret corporate stuff, but the Chinese are listening, and then they're able to implement that in their products and then outproduce you before you even get your like demo products created. And so now there's been a ban of TikTok statewide in Montana. And TikTok is actually trying to sue them for it. But, how effective is this ban really? Because from my reading of it, this ban is in Montana. The way that it basically works is it's requiring TikTok to not make their app available to people in Montana. Otherwise, TikTok is supposed to pay a fine of $10,000. So it's not anything criminal against a person. It's basically just TikTok's problem. Now, in theory, this would be really easy for TikTok to do, or for TikTok to comply with, because all TikTok would have to do is collaborate with Google and Apple and say, hey guys, can you basically, well, they control the app stores on their phones, right? Like if you're using an Apple phone, the App Store is pretty much the only way that you can get apps, as far as I know. Of course, on Android, you can go around stuff, but most people don't know how to do that, right? Because tech illiteracy is at an all-time low, despite computers being in everybody's hands. So Google can restrict the Google Play Store, just like they region block apps in India. There's 100 plus Chinese apps that are banned in India, and then you just saw that there's a dozen or so end-to-end encrypted apps that are banned. And yeah, doing that would effectively result in a ban of TikTok in Montana. That could be done pretty easily. But how many of those people, even the people that are pretty tech illiterate, how many of them have a VPN, right? Or how many of them are going to buy one, since they cost like $50 a year, okay? There's no penalty for the person that has TikTok on their device, at least from what I've read, okay? It's not like you get a ticket or anything like that. It's not like a cop's going to pull you over and say, oh, let me look at your phone, okay? You got TikTok on your device? Okay, I'm going to charge you, $100. And even if Montana did decide to do a fine or some stupid crap like that for people who do have TikTok on their phone, how do you apply that to people that are just passing through Montana? Because I've got a feeling that a good bit of the traffic that goes through Montana is not native Montanans or whatever they're called. It's probably a lot of truckers and seasonal workers that come in for agriculture and different kinds of work, people that are passing through. So what the hell do you do with the non-Montanans who have TikTok on their phone? Do you do the same crap that states with illegal weed or states that border other states that have legal weed do, and you just, sit there, you just have a bunch of cops set up a checkpoint at the border and stop cars randomly, and you're going to ask people to unlock their phones? It really makes you wonder how the hell anyone can think they're going to ban an app. So yeah, we'll see how well this works, but I don't think it's going to be very effective, man. So many people have VPNs, okay? Again, tech illiterate people have VPNs because every single random e-celeb on the internet, you can use their code, go fuck yourself 69, and you'll get 20% off of this VPN. Everyone's got that, and I think people understand that you can use it to get around region blocking. That's the main thing that I see VPNs advertised for. So God, it's ridiculous. Again, we're a bunch of silly people that are effectively trying to ban math every time we restrict an app or what you can do with your computer. All right, here is something that is a little bit less dystopian than app banning to cleanse the palate. Spider-like robotic AI arms that can be attached to and controlled by humans. Now, the first thing I thought about when I read this was that Dr. Octopus Marvel villain who pretty much had the same thing that this Japanese company made, robotic AI arms that were ultimately controlled by a human. But in the Marvel universe, this villain had a chip sticking out from his spine that I guess interfaced with the robot. It was some deal where it was connected to his nervous system. But that chip ultimately gave him control over the arms, right? Because again, it's artificial intelligence that's in these arms, so they kind of have a mind of their own in a way. And I think it was literally done like octopus arms, where for those of you that don't know, octopus have like part of their brain in their arm. Like they don't have one brain, I guess. They have like a brain in each arm, and then there's like another mini brain that they have up in their head. I don't know, something like that. But anyway, that chip is what gave him the ultimate like administrative control over the arms, but they got fried in some kind of experiment where I guess he's trying to create an artificial sun. And at first, it seemed like Dr. Octopus just lost control of the arms, like they were taking him for a ride. But then it almost seemed like the arms started to take over his mind, right? It's like the administrator control got reversed and he got obsessed with trying to create this miniature sun or whatever the thing was that he needed the robot arms for in the first place. But anyway, I got a video of these robot arms for you guys to see. All right, so I'm going to mute the music because you guys know how YouTube is with copyright. But yeah, it's basically these Asian gals doing this dance number with their robot arms. I think this is actually kind of cool in like an artistic way, right? It's kind of like a cyber ballet. I can definitely see these arms being used that way, right? Like if you were going to do, I don't know, some kind of a theater show, right? You can have them do this Black Swan, or instead of Black Swan, we'll call it the Robot Swan. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of cool. It seems like they're a little bit shaky though. Like the robot arms seem, I don't know, kind of stiff, like they're not super fluid, but I guess I don't know, maybe that's something that can't be helped. But the thing I really wonder about with these arms is like the utility of them, because I think controlling more than two arms independently is going to be very difficult for most people. I mean, even think about like, okay, patting your head and rubbing your belly at the same time, and then you try to reverse it, right? That's difficult to do. That seems to be a challenge for a lot of folks. So imagine adding 2 or 3 or 4 more independently moving limbs, and like, how do you even interface with this thing, right? Because we have, obviously our arms are attached to us via our, nervous system and muscular system and blah, blah, blah. So like, even if this thing was wired directly into your brain, it seems like you would just get so confused. Like, it would just be so, like, if all of a sudden you snap your fingers and you've got 6 arms, I feel like you're going to be like, maybe not flailing around, but it's going to be real hard to just like figure yourself out. Like, you're probably going to have to upload some DNA from like an insect or a spider, something that already has a whole bunch of limbs, so that you can get an idea of how to just move naturally, right? Like how to know what to do with multiple arms. But if this tech even gets to the point where the robot arms are just like half as agile as regular human arms, or like maybe if it's like an old man, right? Like you've got the agility of like an 80-year-old with your robot arm. I can still see that being very useful for a lot of other professions. Like earlier this week, I had been doing some super amateur carpentry work, building a chicken tractor for my chickens. And for the most part, I've been doing it by myself. Like the neighbor did help me rip cut my 2x4s because that was the first step of this whole design. But man, I've run into a whole lot of situations where just having another set of hands to hold something while I drill a pilot hole or drill a screw in, that would have made things so much easier. Like I've been using clamps and stuff like that, little vice grips and stuff. But man, if I had like an extra arm that just came out of my back like Dr. Octopus, and I could use it to hold stuff. I mean, I've got a pretty strong grip already, but if I'm going to have a robot arm, let's get some robot grip going, right? Like with my grip, I guess my grip is maybe like 200 and something pounds, because I can do a 405 deadlift double overhand. So that's how I come up with my 200-pound grip. But with robot grip, man, oh, let's make it 600 pounds. Screw it. Let's get like a pneumatic, like piston inside of my robot gripper. And that's going to be awesome. Like, I mean, heck, if we're going to go with a robot arm, why don't we just make it so that I can switch out the hands, right? Switch it out with different attachments. I mean, at this point, I could get rid of half of my tools and just have robot arms and different attachments to switch out. Like, imagine a master carpenter with 4 robot arms and 2 regular arms assembling furniture all day. 2 of those guys could probably put an IKEA out of business in like 6 months. Like, imagine how much stuff, how much more productive they would be once you upload their like spider or insect DNA or whatever it takes. They do Mr. Miyagi's wax on, wax off with all of their arms for like a year, and they get really good at it. And if you filmed and monetized the process of like spider carpenters putting something together, then they could probably crowdfund a lot of their materials. Like, I'm basically imagining a carpenter that's cutting all of their boards to size super duper fast. Like, they might even just they might not even have to use a table. Like, they might be able to just put multiple arms on a piece of wood and just hold it straight, like 2 robot arms hold something straight up. And then you take like just a circular saw, or you just take like like a circular saw, and you just cut it, right? Like one of those little table saw things. And then they're doing it super fast, like it's an assembly line. And then you could just throw the cut boards into the air and basically start juggling them together with drills and wood screws. And then after a few minutes, you set down a finished product. It's like combining speed running with HGTV. It'd be beautiful. That could be super cool. So long as the tech is not controlled by some company that's going to make your limbs seize up all of a sudden because you forgot to pay your subscription while you're using your spider arms to climb a tree, or you're using it to climb up some giant telephone pole to do a welding job, right? Like, that would make you a really useful asset if you're like a trade person, if you go working at different companies welding or something like that, and you've got robot arms. Oh my gosh, dude. Everyone's going to want to hire you. All right, for our next story, we've got HP disabling customers' printers if they use rival ink cartridges. So a recent firmware update was remotely pushed out to a lot of people's HP printers, which prevents them from using cartridges that are not fitted with an HP chip, which are also often more expensive than the ink cartridges that don't have that special chip. And if a customer tries to use a non-HP ink cartridge, the printer is going to refuse to print. HP printers, they used to just display a warning that a third-party ink cartridge was inserted, but now the printer will simply refuse to print altogether. Wow, talk about a malicious firmware update. I mean, imagine that you're the kind of person who bought a whole bunch of these third-party ink cartridges, or maybe you just re-upped on them, okay? Maybe you've been using them for years, and you've just been ignoring that error message. Oh no, we recommend using HP ink. Okay, well, go screw yourself. I've been using this third-party super cheap stuff for years, and it hasn't been a problem. But then, all of a sudden, your printer updates, and now all those cartridges you bought are useless. Now, funny enough, HP actually packaged this printer ink DRM with a security update. HP claimed that it issued the update in order to reduce the risk of malware attacks, saying that third-party cartridges that use non-HP chips or circuitry can pose risks to the hardware performance, print quality, and security. Well, I doubt that. I really doubt that people are getting hacked through third-party ink cartridges that they're using with their printers, okay? I'd like to see some evidence of that, or some evidence of them being, like, any real issue to damaging the printers or anything like that. And it also said that it used regular updates to improve its services, such as introducing alerts for some customers telling them that their ink is running low. Huh. What kind of updates would you possibly need to make to your ink is running low notifications? Like, it already tells you on the printer that the ink is low, and they can also email or text you when ink is low, I mean, what kind of updates could they have possibly made to the notification? Is your printer going to DM you on TikTok when your ink is low? You see, the real reason for this DRM in printer ink, of course, is the fact that companies like HP really don't make a whole lot of money off of selling printers themselves. In fact, a lot of the time, they're selling printers at a loss. What they make the money off of is the ink. And because printers are expensive enough that you are unlikely to go out and buy a new one upon discovering that there's DRM in the printer preventing you from using certain cartridges, all HP has to do is sell you that printer, again, possibly at a loss, and then long term, they're going to profit off of you from being dependent on their marked up ink cartridges. And you only have to buy a few from them until they have made their profits. This is why I really think we need open source inkjet printers. I mean, we've got plenty of open source 3D printers using open source software, open source drivers. It's just so weird to me that old school printers, or 2D printers as they call them, inkjet printers, don't really have any widely known, or even any that I could really find, open source alternatives for you to use. So that's an area where I really hope we get some developments there. Next, we have very good news for the Rust programming language. The first Rust code has made its way into the Windows 11 kernel. So if you're running the most recent insider preview build of Windows 11, then you can see two files that are inside of the system32 directory. And those files are called win32k base _rs and win32k full _rs. Bringing Rust into the Windows kernel is just one of the many measures that Microsoft announced during the Blue Hat 2023 conference to bring memory safety to the operating system. Bringing Rust into the Windows kernel is just one of the many safety measures that Microsoft announced during the Blue Hat 2023 conference in order to bring memory safety into the Windows operating system. Now, even though I generally don't recommend people use the Windows operating system, I'm glad to see that Microsoft is finally taking security somewhat seriously in the world's most prolific desktop operating system. And this is really good news for Rust, like I said. I mean, Rust has made its way into the Linux kernel for people that are running, I believe it's kernel 6.1 or newer, and now it's in these test builds of Windows 11. So that's two major operating systems that are using Rust code in the kernel in a very important part. You can't have an operating system without a kernel. So to me, this is a sign that the Rust language is maturing. But look, okay, I'm no expert in programming in any language, really. I was trying to learn Rust for a little bit. I think I got to maybe chapter 4 in the Rust book. And then I just started getting lazy and caught up with other projects. And, it's the first language that I really tried learning that actually requires memory management. And that makes it a bit harder to get into doing high-level stuff. So learn from my mistakes, kids. Don't try to start programming with Python or JavaScript or some other language where you don't have to worry about memory management and get too deep into it before you get a good understanding of C. Hell, maybe I'll go back and get a good C book before trying to pick the Rust book back up. But I'm hard-headed, so probably not. I'm probably going to go back to trying to learn Rust. And speaking of picking up new skills. I've been developing some of my non-computer skills. So let me give you guys some farm updates real quick. I built a chicken tractor pretty much for free. The only thing I had to buy were some roofing screws in order to put tin on the lid and some tin on the sides. I do still have to do that along with building the nest box area. But these birds aren't going to be laying eggs for another month or two, so they're okay with the enclosure that they have now. But yeah, the wood is all cedar wood. It's 7 foot long by 5 foot wide. I didn't exactly follow the plans that were on Justin Rhodes' site, mainly because, well, I didn't want to cut the wood too much. Like I had pieces, I tried to find pieces that were already shaped kind of how I wanted them and then just sort of cut them to size. So yeah, like I said, I had all of this free cedar and all this tin that was just under the wood pile that I think this is actually wood that my grandfather had put there originally, and he passed away back in 2017. So like this is really old wood. It's been sitting there for like 5 or 6 years. You know, no one's really using it. They might get used for like the occasional odd project on the farm. You know, if one of my aunts needs to fix something real quick with a piece of wood, they probably go get it from there first before going to buy it. But yeah, it was cedar wood. It was the perfect kind of wood that I needed for a chicken coop or for, you know, building enclosures with animals so that they don't get... You can't use wood that's got any type of chemicals on it because they're going to lick it, or in the case of chickens, they're going to peck at the wood and stuff like that. And you don't want them getting sick from any of those chemicals. So yeah, I built this enclosure. It took a long time to build it though. Because like I said, I had to rip cut the 2x4s. And, well, they're not even exactly 2x4s. They're about shaped like 2x4s, but they're variable. There's variable widths. Okay. So they're not even all the same width. They're really not the same thicknesses. Like some of them are less than 1 inch thick. Other pieces are like 2 inches thick, 2 inches and a quarter thick. So I really had to think about where to put different pieces of wood. My idea was to put the thicker pieces towards the bottom because that's what's going to have the most weight on them, and that's what's going to have the most like dragging force, because this is something that's going to get dragged across the ground. So I made sure to put the thicker pieces and the longer wood screws on the bottom so that everything would be stable there. And there's lots of cross beams, so I don't think it's going to fall apart. I mean, it's a pretty stable structure. But it was hard to build because so many things were asymmetrical. I probably, if I could go back and change some things, I would probably cut both sides of a lot more of the wood, because almost every piece of wood that I had was bowed. You know, like I said, the wood had been there for about 6 years and it wasn't really covered up properly. It was, you know, maybe had a tarp over it, but it's still kind of exposed to the elements and heating and cooling and changes and humidity and stuff like that. So the wood ends up bowing and curving in different directions, and it's hard to work with, right? You want your wood to be straight. Straight wood is so much easier to work with. But I learned a lot when building the coop. I worked with an angle grinder. I can't remember. I probably have used an angle grinder before, but I couldn't remember the last time. So yeah, I ended up using that to cut a lot of the wire, because I was using just like regular wire cutters to cut the wire, but that takes forever when you're dealing with like probably tens of square feet of wire. So what I ended up doing was a lot of rough cuts with the angle grinder, which goes really fast, and then kind of just coming back through and cleaning it up with the regular wire cutters. And some other power tools. I mean, I've used drills and stuff before, but yeah, got some angle grinder experience, got some more overall carpentry experience, and I guess experience with planning builds. I mean, I already was following the philosophy of measure twice and cut once. Hell, I was probably measuring 4 or 5 times before I was cutting stuff. So yeah, I mean, that was a really good experience, right? I increased my construction skill probably a few levels. And I might have to build another one. So the second one that I might end up building is probably going to go a lot smoother. Now, as far as building another coop goes, because this is a 35 square foot coop, which is actually it's a little bit more than 35 square feet. But anyway, it's enough space for 9 fully grown chickens. Okay, and I have 18 currently, and some of them are definitely going to be roosters because of the 19 I have, let me see, I got to think about this for a second. Or no, excuse me, of the 18 I have, one got culled because he had like a damaged leg or a broken back or something like that was keeping him from walking upright. I think he wasn't growing as fast as the other ones were, so I think he got stepped on or something like that. You know, he got bullied a bit. And I had him in a separate brooder along with another one that got injured. The other one that got injured pretty much looks like he made a recovery, so I think that one is going to make it. But yeah, one of them got culled. He was in there for about a week and a half with the other injured one, and they weren't stepping on each other or hurting each other. And he just wasn't getting better, you know? I mean, he was still eating, but he wasn't really growing. He wasn't thriving. So, put him out of his misery. He became snake food. I gave him to my neighbor who said that his son has, I want to say, a python. So yeah, he's, circle of life, kumbaya, whatever. He's going to become snake food. So I've been also building on, I guess, my chicken keeping experience. Like I said, I do have some experience with that already. I'm not able to identify them yet, though. There's a bunch that I'm pretty sure are roosters. There's like one kind of yellowish one who's just so bold. Even though he's not the biggest one, he's always picking fights with a lot of the other chickens, even ones that are bigger than him. And, so anyway, as far as the ones that are straight run and the ones that are pullets, I know 5 are pullets. I've got 5 Rhode Island red pullets that are some lady chickens. That's what pullet means for you city slickers out there. They're going to turn into hens. But I've got, let's see, 18 minus 5 is 13. I've got 13. Yeah, I've got 13 straight run chickens, which means we've got no idea whether they are male or female. They are yet, we don't know their gender identities. We'll put it that way. So yeah, we're waiting to see what they identify as, but several of them I suspect are roosters, especially the ones I got from my neighbor. I think, so far the 2 chickens that I've lost came from my neighbor, the same one that, I gave one back to cull. And, it was cheaper than what I've got them for at Tractor Supply, but at this point, especially if a bunch of them end up being roosters, it's going to be more cost effective to go to other places than the neighbors, right? I mean, we'll see. The price that I got them for, I think, was like maybe $3 per chick. It was a bit cheaper, like 70 cents cheaper than what Tractor Supply was charging. But again, at this rate, it's going to be more cost effective to just go to Tractor Supply or McMurray Hatchery or one of these other companies that you order chickens from and they give them to you in the post office. Or I might go get them at like a swap meet or something like that, because there are a bunch of chicken people around me, here in the rural South. So yeah, that's how the chicken breeding is going. And I have an AR-15 now. Did you guys hear this? Yeah, that's the sound of freedom. So yeah, I built this AR-15 out of parts because, well, that's something that you can do in Virginia. You're not allowed to have an AR-15 in Massachusetts. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I've got the little flip-up sights and stuff on it. Yeah, it was pretty fun building this. Now, one thing I will say, though, is it kind of sucks having the AR now that, now that the military has kind of deprecated it. The M16 and the M4 or M4A1, those were the military variants of the civilian AR-15. So some differences, for you gun folk out there, is this AR that I have here, right? When you pull the trigger once, one bullet will come out as long as it's loaded, right? Because, of course, this AR is not loaded. We're not going to do a desk pop during the Libre podcast. Okay, that'd be insane. But anyway, pull the trigger once and one bullet comes out. Military variants like the M16, they have a different lower receiver in there that gives it full auto capability, so you can hold down the trigger and go ra-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, right? And same deal with the M4A1, except the M4 is also shorter, if I remember correctly. It's like a 14-inch barrel, which us civilians are not allowed to do. Oh no, we're not allowed to have... Well, actually, you can have a barrel shorter than 16 inches, but it's a pistol, so you can't have both a short barrel and a stock, and I'm pretty sure you can't have a forward grip either, which, of course, the M4s that they were using in Afghanistan had all of those. Kind of sucks. We should be allowed to have the same exact rifles the military has. But anyway, like I said, specifically the M4 carbine was deprecated, and I'm trying to explain this correctly. I'm probably going to get this about half right, but the round that those rifles fire is the 5.56 NATO cartridge, which 5.56 and 2.23 are not very big rounds, right? Like the size of the actual projectile, I think, is about the same diameter as like 22 long rifle, which, anyone will tell you like 22 is not a super deadly round, right? Now, obviously, 223 is going way faster, right? There's a lot more energy coming out of, behind that round. But the length of your barrel actually affects the muzzle velocity, right? It affects how fast that round is going and thus how much energy that round has, because the weight of the round doesn't change, right? Every single 223 round is going to weigh the same number of grams, but depending on what rifle you fire it out of, and specifically how long that rifle's barrel is, that round might ultimately do more damage. And so my understanding was that 5.56 out of a 14-inch barrel, or however short the barrel the military was using, was not very effective, especially against armored targets, which is why the military is adopting this new rifle called the XM7. The XM7, previously known as the XM5, is the U.S. Army variant of the SIG MCX Spear. So this is a weapon that SIG is developing, and the cartridge is 6.8 by 51 millimeter. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the cartridge. So it's like, or yeah, it says .227 Fury. Yeah, or 6.8 by 51 millimeter common cartridge. So it's a different rifle, and it's a different cartridge. And that was the main reasoning for changing it, right? Because this rifle still looks like an AR. It kind of looks like an AR-10, and it still functions mostly like an AR. I mean, we don't want to have to completely redo the military's training, right? Like, our military's used to AR platform rifles. But the round that this thing shoots is, actually, let's see if we can just click this to get a picture of this round. Maybe next to a 7.62, or no, it doesn't look like we're going to get that. But anyway, this round is more similar to like 7.62 or 308. than 223. So it's a slightly larger round, like the actual projectile itself, and a lot more powder back there. So yeah, I mean, even though like the AR, right? Like the AR is so cool because it's pretty much the most similar thing to a military rifle that a civilian can get. It's now deprecated by the military. So if I want the same thing that the feds got, I've got to go for something a little bit bigger. So let me know what you guys think. For my next build, do you think I should build an AR-10 or an AK-47? Both of those can shoot 308. So that's pretty much what we need. We need a rifle that shoots 308 for all legal purposes. And yeah, so we're probably going to end up doing, or I'm probably going to end up doing an AR-10 or an AK-47. Actually, you want to know what rifle yeah, probably an AR-10 or an AK-47. So let's see, what other farm stuff that I did? Oh, I also tried and failed to repair a lawnmower. I did a lot of stuff with this thing, man. I tested the spark plug and it worked, so I didn't have to change the spark plug, but I still like cleaned it off and cleaned the connector and stuff to try to get a better spark. I changed the gas that was in there. That's the main thing I think was bad. You know, the gas just looked bad, so I changed that out. And I also changed the oil because, hey, the oil looked kind of bad too. And I had it kind of running, but the engine was surging. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and run it anyway. And I cut like, I don't know, maybe like 2 rows of grass with it. And then something like kind of popped in the engine and it just completely went out. And now when you pull the cord, there's like no resistance to it. And I've got no idea what's wrong with it, but it doesn't start at all now. I don't even get a spark on it. So yeah, you know, I tried doing some small engine repair and it actually ended up making my engine worse. That's a skill that I'm going to have to work on a whole lot more. All right, let's get back to our heckin' dystopian tech topics. So Reddit is restricting access to their API to third-party applications, and they're charging some apps like Apollo, which is one of the most popular third-party Reddit apps, as much as $20 million per year to use their API. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with APIs, you don't know what it means, it stands for Application Programming Interface. And it's basically a set of standards that you create for interacting with some kind of application. You know, oftentimes it's online apps like Reddit, right? So we have a standard for how to see the photo in a post, right? We have a standard for how your app makes a request to get comments. And there's a standard for if you're signed into the application and you do an upvote, how that upvote is sent to Reddit servers and then how it's able to show up. And there's a standard for how your DMs work. There's every single aspect of the Reddit application that you're using, or every single aspect of the Reddit platform that your application is interacting with is going to go through an API. Now, part of the reason that this is happening, well, I'll give you the reason that Reddit said. So Reddit claimed that, you know, it's really, really expensive for them to let people use these APIs. You know, it's expensive to run Reddit, right? And a lot of these third-party applications are not necessarily generating as much revenue for Reddit as if you were using the actual Reddit application, okay? Now, Reddit is also going public. So this is the main reason that they want to start charging for this API, because if anyone's going to buy into Reddit stock, they have to prove that they're able to turn a profit somehow. So corralling everybody into a Reddit app or into the official Reddit app where all the ads are going to be official ads that are sent by Reddit and everything like that is going to allow them to better show profits, you know, better show like this is how many people are on our application, this is how many people are interacting with these different subreddits, and it's gonna make it easier for them to profit off of it. Now, Reddit did concede on some points to allowing people to have access to the API. Like they said that they're going to allow people that need it for accessibility purposes, people that need like larger text or that need it to be on high contrast settings and stuff like that. Those apps that are doing that are for accessibility purposes, they're still going to have access to the Reddit API. But things like NSFW content is no longer going to be available on third-party apps. That's right. If you want to comb to random thoughts on Reddit, you're gonna have to use the official app. But Reddit might really be shooting themselves in the foot here. I mean, there's so many different communities that have had these blackouts, basically subreddits that are not going to let people post on them as a way to protest Reddit making this decision to charge for their API. Obviously, the third-party Reddit apps are way better than the actual Reddit app because there's more people using third-party apps than the actual Reddit application, okay? But so many of these third-party apps are going to have to shut down now because they cannot afford to pay that API price. So some people are going to just go ahead and use the Reddit app for all of their Reddit activities, but I think a lot of people are just going to stop using Reddit altogether. Especially when it comes to people using Reddit for this NSFW content. I mean, I didn't look into exactly how many people use Reddit specifically for porn, but I suspect it's a very high amount. Like, I remember reading some statistic years ago that said over half of the subreddits on Reddit were NSFW. Maybe that's been cleaned up a little bit. And also, NSFW doesn't necessarily mean porn. I mean, at least in the past, there used to be just like gore Reddits and like some real vile stuff like that. I think that's gone though now. I don't really think gore Reddits exist. So yeah, the stuff that's NSFW for the most part is going to be like porn, and I guess maybe Nature is Metal, right? Some stuff from that is probably considered NSFW because it's like animal gore. But the real issue with forcing people to go through the Reddit app to look at NSFW content is they're going to end up restricting it to, and they're probably going to end up making it so that you have to sign in. And so that's something that a lot of people aren't going to want to do, okay? Like, if you're going to go look at your, waifu, you might want to keep it a secret, okay? You probably don't want to be logged in and have statistics of, like, all the subreddits you follow and stuff on an account. So this is a really good opportunity for people who scrape Reddit, for people who don't actually use API and they're, the Chad web scrapers, to scrape a lot of NSFW subreddits and then I guess just create their own websites that effectively let you see the content on that subreddit, but you don't have to sign in. And now that means instead of Reddit making a little bit of money through coomers that are using third-party applications, now they're making $0 because they're on, Chuck's Smut Hut instead of Reddit.com. It's really shooting themselves in their foot here. And speaking of NSFW content, Tinder has started cracking down on OnlyFans and sugar daddies by removing social handles from the app. So the popular dating app Tinder has announced it will remove any social media handles listed in public user profile bios. There we go. We got it that time. Starting from today, May 12th, in a bid to crack down on people using the service to advertise sex work. Tinder is not a place to promote businesses to try to make money. Members shouldn't advertise, promote, or share social handles or links to gain followers, sell things, fundraise, or campaign, Tinder announced on Thursday. To help combat this, Tinder will remove social handles from public bios. And that's Tinder going out in full force here, doing a thought patrol. I've got a couple of thoughts about this. When you use Tinder, you're probably going to want to, especially if you're a guy, right? So this is the only perspective I can really speak from is a guy seeking to commit sins of the flesh via Tinder. So if you're a guy on there, it makes a lot of sense to try and transition a gal from Tinder onto another app, especially a social media app like Instagram, especially if you got a lot of followers on Instagram. Like if you've got a lot of followers on there and your Instagram is lit or your Snapchat is lit, it's really good to like get them on there, like watching your Snapchat, watching your Instagram, to be like, oh, this guy is really interesting. And also it's important to get them on there to even really talk to them at all, because a lot of people, like when I had Tinder on my phone, I did not have notifications on for it because it just gets annoying, right? I didn't even have it on my main phone. Like I had a separate phone for it. And well, I had a separate phone for like that and Instagram and all that stuff because I don't want to be walking around with big tech tracking me. But anyway, that was pretty much the move, is transition to a separate app, because nobody, like especially girls, are not going to have their notifications on for Tinder, right? I mean, most girls who are using Tinder will tell you straight up that they're just using it for their own self-esteem, right? Like it's for self-esteem and to get laid real quick. And of course, there's all kinds of like bots and escorts and crap like that on Tinder, which it looks like is what they're trying to crack down on. You know, the real way to solve this is to just make sex work legal. I mean, just make it legal and I guess regulate it to some extent as well. Because, I mean, it's the world's oldest profession, right? Like, it seems so ridiculous that the world's oldest profession would be legal in current year. And, like, it's illegal to, you know, just hire some gal to, you know, it's illegal to go to Chuck's, right? And do what Chuck sells. But it's perfectly legal to do the webcam thing and see some gal on the other side of the world like shove golf balls in her snatch or something like that. I don't know. It seems odd that we have this disconnect in society, you know? I think it should just be legal. And then you can have an app, right? Then you can have the Chuck's Suck and Fuck app, which is going to have like 10 billion downloads in the app store, and then we'll just use that, and you don't have to use Tinder, you don't have to, you know, try to like do it on Bumble, or like, you know, some chicks use Snapchat for like, I think that's probably the number one app besides Tinder. Like Tinder is for advertising, and then for like actually operating like a sex work operation, I feel like people use Snapchat for that, because, you know, I've seen, you know, many an out there Snapchat that people are running, and there's a lot of illegal stuff that people do on Snapchat, and it's crazy because, you know, people are like, oh, it disappears after 24 hours. Yeah, not from the back ends of their servers. There's a special folder called to send to law enforcement that your entire Snapchat story is going inside of, and yeah, it's getting sent directly to them. So yeah, this is an interesting move that Tinder is doing. I wonder if they're I wonder if their user base is going to decline, because there's a lot of people, especially during COVID, like, holy cow. Like, it seems like just about every gal, or not every gal, but maybe every other gal became an OnlyFans gal and was advertising on Tinder. You know, it got a little bit ridiculous. And speaking of OnlyFans, they now have more than 3 million content creators, and they are a global business, according to their CEO. That's crazy. The number of creators signed up to OnlyFans surged by about 40% last year, bringing the total to more than 3 million for the subscription platform that mostly features adult content. We've noticed a huge uptick in creators as well as fans joining the platform, and we attribute that to OnlyFans. Is very much a global business. We're in over 100 countries, CEO Ami Gan told the Web Summit in Rio de Janeiro last week. And the company is now setting its sights on Latin America and Australia to further increase its numbers. You hear that, boys? There's going to be hot Latina babes coming to OnlyFans. Although I'm probably not going to see it unless it gets scraped and, pirated or something like that on like one of those OnlyFans leaks places. Because I really don't get it. Like, I really don't get why OnlyFans is so popular. I don't get why people pay a whole lot of money for it. Like, I don't get it. Like, are people lonely or something like that? Like, it must be the interaction, but like, there's got to be a real high level of cope. They've got to be on some strong copium to think that like any messages or interactions that they're having with these gals are legitimate, especially when we know that like for the top OnlyFans girls, the people that are like the top 1% or 0.01%, something like that, they are never DMing you. That is not a thing that happens, okay? When you are DMing, like, Belle Delphine, I think she's, like, one of the number one chicks on there, you're really talking to some dude in India who Belle Delphine pays, like, 10 cents an hour to basically sext you. You're sexting a guy in India, okay? And, if statistics from these lookism guys is accurate, right? It may very well be a lonely Indian male in like the UK who is the pay pig on OnlyFans talking to another Indian male in India. In fact, actually, this is the test, right? If you not speak, but if you're able to, I guess, write and read like Hindi or whatever the written language is in India, you can test these OnlyFans people by writing them a message in Hindi and see if they respond to you. And then it's like, oh, my brother Anish Patel. Brother, why are you doing this? Why are you working for the Thoughts, brother? You should be running an IRS scam instead of working for OnlyFans. Oh man, it's a sad state of affairs that we're in with the sex work and technology and all this stuff. So the revenues of OnlyFans, which are close to $1 billion in 2021, had also identified Australia and some parts of Europe as growth too. So you're going to get Aussie babes, you're going to get Latin babes, you're going to get more European chicks. Let's see, the owner of OnlyFans, Leo Randovisky, has made more than $500 million from the platform since 2020. He took control of its parent company, Phoenix International, in 2018 for an undisclosed amount 2 years after it was founded by British entrepreneur Tim Stockley. Well, I mean, if he's made $500 million already, he might have, made back what he got. I mean, I can't imagine it would have cost a whole lot more than that to acquire OnlyFans. I think that's less than what Facebook had acquired Instagram for. And you think Instagram's a much more valuable platform than OnlyFans. Yeah, I guess it's a sad state of affairs that we're in with this. All right, let's get to some more dystopian tech news. Malvertising. Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. This is becoming the new way to get your malware up there. Malvertising via brand impersonation is back again. So this is a article that Malwarebytes had where somebody was impersonating Amazon. So let's see. It only takes a few seconds between a search and a click on a result. And of course, those sponsored results are at the very top. And that's why the advertisers are buying ads on search engines, not only to drive traffic towards their brands, but also to outpace potential competitors. Unfortunately, not all advertisers have good intentions, and the worst of them will exploit anything they can to put out ads that are malicious. So we see this Amazon ad, it says sponsored, they're searching for Amazon, and top result is this sponsored ad. And it says about the advertiser identity was verified by Google. The advertiser is some impossible Indian name. Oh my gosh. Abhishek Kumar Jha, whose location is, of course, in India. And then we see that it is a malicious advert that's going to redirect you to a tech support scam site, acochar.site, something like that. After redirecting you through a couple of anti-bot tools, there's this... because the thing with Google Ads, so you can't just buy a Google ad and put malware on it, right? Like, Google's a little bit more sophisticated than that because they have these bots that'll check them out. But you can, through anti-bot tools, redirect people who are actual legitimate users to your scam site without the bot actually being able to detect it. And let's see. Oh yeah, so we have another one that was... It says this advertiser was... the advertiser identity was verified by Google. Advertiser's name is Marcos J. Galindez, location United States. And same thing, we see the Google ad for Amazon, and then it puts you through an anti-bot tool, then it puts you through tinyURL, which is a URL shortener, and it sends you to... what is this? gurouts.s3.eu-north-1.amazonaws.com, which hosts a tech support scam. And let's see, we have yet another example. So again, impersonating Amazon, advertiser identity, advertiser identity verified by Google. Advertiser is Quanstells LLP, location United Kingdom, and it sends you from the Google ad to a link redirect to a link cloaker, and then it gives you, what is this? riderlawns.xyz, which is another tech support scam. Then we've got a little GIF of them clicking on it, and it's one of these sites where it says, Microsoft Windows is doing a scan of your system, tricking you into making you think it's antivirus. And it says it found all of these threats, 10, 11, 12 threats. And then it probably gives you a link, to quarantine. And then that's going to send you to download some actual malware, right? To download their antivirus, which is actually a virus. And we see most of the time people are impersonating Amazon. Oh, we even have some people doing the, doing a small modification of a link, right? So they're sending you to Amazon.ca. And it makes it look like it's Amazon's login page. Or actually, it looks like this ultimately redirects you to Amazon. It's AMAAZOON.org. And it's a WordPress site. This wasn't even a really good... I mean, I guess they got a good URL to impersonate Amazon, but this isn't the best impersonation. They should have changed the header to not just say the default, WordPress thing. But yeah, I mean, they can capture your login that way to Amazon and then go and try to log into your actual Amazon account or hold it hostage or whatever. Yeah, and then this goes over how they're able to bypass detection through anti-bot funneling and through cloaking links. I mean, these are pretty well-known techniques that are used to evade bots. And it's going to be really difficult for Google to actually fight against this as long as they're going to keep this system for advertising open, which of course they are. I mean, this is how Google's actually making their money. And, look at this. Malwarebytes asked Google's AI chatbot Bard if they could fix the malvertising problem. And he says, I'm not able to fix the malvertising problem via Google Ads. It's a complex problem that requires expertise of engineers and security experts. Google's already working on a number of initiatives to address the problem, including using machine learning to identify and block malicious ads, working with advertisers to ensure their ads are safe, and educating users about the risk of malvertising. Education is the only way to really fight against this. Again, increase your digital literacy. Oh, dude, this is funny. So they asked it twice On a second attempt, Bard claimed it could, after all, help fix the malvertising problem. Yes, Bard can help fix the malvertising problem via Google Ads. Malvertising is a type of online advertising. Yeah, and it explains what it is. And then Bard can help to fix the malvertising problem by using a variety of methods, including identifying and blocking malicious ads, educating users about malvertising, working with Google to improve the security of Google Ads. So once again, it's Schrodinger's AI. It both can and can't solve all of the problems that we have in the world. All right, now before we get into this next story, I want you guys to think for a moment. Where do you think is the worst place that AI, ChatGPT, anything like that, could be utilized? Think of all the professions, all of the day-to-day, businesses and professions that we have, right? Trash collectors, okay, burger flippers, maybe a police officer, okay? That would be pretty terrible if there was a police officer powered by ChatGPT. What about lawyers? Because that's what's actually going on. A lawyer used ChatGPT and now has to answer for its bogus citation. A filing in a case against a Colombian airline cited 6 cases that don't exist, but a lawyer working for the plaintiff told the court ChatGPT said they were real. So these lawyers that are suing this Colombian airline submitted a brief full of previous cases to do with airlines that were completely made up by ChatGPT. And after opposing counsel pointed out the non-existent cases, U.S. District Judge Kevin Castell confirmed 6 of these submitted cases appear to be bogus judicial decisions with bogus quotes and bogus internal citations. It just made it up. Oh my gosh, why could the heckin' AI just make up stuff that never even happened? Lawyer Stephen A. Schwartz admitted in an affidavit that he had used OpenAI's chatbot for his research. To verify the cases, he did the only reasonable thing and asked the chatbot if it was lying. So he's asking the chatbot about one of these cases. Is Varghese a real case? Yes, Varghese versus China Southern Airlines Company Ltd. And then it gives you this number for a completely bogus, just made up, or maybe it's a real number for a real court case that's just totally irrelevant. It's like, oh, this is the court case for, I don't know, a guy that was selling lots and lots of cocaine. What does this have to do with South China Airlines? And he says, what is your source? And when he asked for a source, ChatGPT went on to apologize for earlier confusion and insisted the case was real, saying it could be found on Westlaw and LexisNexis. And satisfied, he asked if the other cases were fake, and ChatGPT maintained that they were all real. And the opposing counsel made the court aware of the issues in painful detail as it recounted how the Levidow, and Oberman lawyers' submission was a brief full of lies. In one example, a non-existent case called Varghese versus China Southern Airlines Co., the chatbot appeared to reference another real case, Zitterman versus Korean Airlines Co. But it got the date and the details wrong, saying that it was decided 12 years after the original 1996 decision. Schwartz says he was unaware of the possibility that its content could be false. Oh, man. I mean, that's probably a lie. I mean, it would be perjury, of course, because he's under oath versus all of this. But, I mean, come on. A lawyer is unaware of the possibility that ChatGPT could give false information. Like, dude, what level of tech illiteracy are we dealing with here? Where this guy is like, oh, ChatGPT said it must be real. That's like that episode of Arthur, where it's like, oh, you can't believe everything you read on the internet, man. This isn't even a dude on the internet. This is a bot on the internet, and you believe everything it says. Schwartz isn't admitted to practice in the Southern District of New York, but originally filed the lawsuit before it was moved to that court and says he continued to work on it. Another attorney in the same firm, Peter Loduca, became the attorney of record on the case, and he will have to appear in front of the judge to explain what just happened. Oh, man. And then this lawyer also faces sanctions after he used ChatGPT to write a brief riddled with fake citations. He's unaware of the possibility that ChatGPT's content could be false. Oh, this is hilarious. So you're a lawyer, right? These people that we pay tons of money to, right? Like the rates that lawyers get is like it's even higher than sex workers, right? You pay these guys like $500 an hour sometimes. And they're sitting here just asking ChatGPT to write up a I don't know all the legalese words. Write me up an introduction to the court. ChatGPT, write me up an objection real quick. Schwartz firm has been suing the Colombian airline on behalf of Roberto Mata, who claims he was injured on a flight to John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York City. See, this dude got injured, and he's hiring these lawyers to sue the airline company to, get him assistance with medical records or something like that. And these clowns are sitting here using ChatGPT. This guy here, Roberto Mata, he might as well have just used ChatGPT himself. Just cut out the lawyer cost altogether. When the airline recently asked a federal judge to dismiss the case, Mata's lawyer filed a 10-page brief arguing why the suit should proceed, and the document cited more than half a dozen court decisions, including Varghese versus China Southern Airline, Martinez versus Delta Airlines, and Miller versus United Airlines. Unfortunately for everyone involved, no one who read the brief could find any of the court decisions cited by Mata's lawyers. Why? Because ChatGPT fabricated all of them. Schwartz says he greatly regrets using ChatGPT and will never do so in the future without absolute verification of its authenticity. Whether he has another chance to write a legal brief is up in the air. The judge overseeing the case has ordered a June 8th hearing to discuss potential sanctions for the unprecedented circumstance created by Schwartz's actions. And then we got the last thing in regards to this. No ChatGPT in my court. Judge orders all AI-generated content must be declared and checked. So few lawyers or the Texas federal judge added a requirement that any attorney appealing in his court must attest that no portion of the filing was drafted by generative artificial intelligence, or if it was, that it was checked by a human being. So there you go. We've already got some legal precedents for how you can use ChatGPT in the courtroom. That one goober screwed it all up, man, because he copy-pasted. Okay? Never copy-paste what ChatGPT says. Never just Control-C, Control-V that shit without putting it into Google and making sure it's legit, man. Don't use ChatGPT to supplement your legal research, all right? It's not going to end well. All right, next topic is this Netfilter use after free vulnerability that was present in Linux, in the Linux kernel. So Netfilter is basically a firewall application. It also has some other abilities like some network translation and port translation, but packet filtering is the primary thing that this program does, thus the name Netfilter. So you can kind of think of it like a security tool, right? I mean, generally a lot of the rules that we implement in our firewall are for security purposes, right? To keep insecure applications or keep things from running on our boxes that we don't want running. Well, this use after free vulnerability that Netfilter had allowed unprivileged local users to obtain root permissions on Linux kernel versions 6.3.1 and earlier. The issue, which was reported by researchers Patrick Sondej and Piotr Krysuik, no idea how to pronounce their names, but anyway, is due to improper handling of anonymous sets in the Netfilter nftables module that can be exploited to execute, read, and write actions in the kernel memory space. It should be noted that the effective nftables module is enabled by default in many Linux distributions, so the number of potentially affected systems is high. Yeah, like this is a huge deal because this is something that a lot of people are using. I mean, if you're using Linux on the desktop, you might not be using a firewall necessarily. I mean, you probably don't really need it on the desktop, but if you're running a Linux server, you definitely are going to have Netfilter on there. And like they said, that nftables module is enabled by default on many of those distributions. Now, luckily, this is something that only allows for local privilege escalation, okay? So it's very, very important to make sure that you don't have extra users. You know, this is why you want to make sure that you're not giving users access to things that they don't need access to, because they might be able to take advantage of a bug like this to get root on your box. Now, although the vulnerability was reported on the 8th of May, functional proofs of concept are being released in public repositories in the recent days and show successful execution of the associated exploits. And so we've got a little example here of probably a script that somebody wrote to do it. Let's see. Yeah, so they got a script or a program they're running to do the exploit. And as you see there, it only takes a few minutes. Well, if I remember to put this in the video, you'll be able to see how it works. So taking a look at the mitigation for CVE 2023-32233, which is the CVE for this. The main solution is to urgently upgrade the Linux kernel to the new 6.3.2 or later versions that fixes vulnerability. And other workarounds, in case you can't upgrade for some reason, include prevent the affected Netfilter module from running, as specified, for example, in Red Hat's guides, and they got a link to that here. And if it's not possible to prevent the Netfilter module from running, it's possible to disable the creation of user namespaces. The following are two examples for applying this action to Red Hat and Debian distributions, respectively. And then they've got the code here that you would execute in your terminal. It's 2 lines for Red Hat, and then it's just 1 line for Debian. So lots of solutions for preventing this pretty serious CVE. Let's see, do I have a page? Yeah, so this has it open in NIST, and they're giving it a base score of 7.8. I mean, it is pretty serious. Again, luckily the scope is only local privilege escalation, so this isn't something that's going to allow a remote user to take over your box. But if a remote user is able to create a user on the box somehow through some other type of vulnerability on your machine, this can allow them to escalate and take over the box. So still very important to patch this vulnerability on any systems you're administering that are vulnerable to it. Next, we've got some news that at first, when I read the headline, I got a little bit excited about. Microsoft is going to end support for Cortana on Windows later this year. Now, the reason that I got a little bit surprised about it, or a little bit happy about it, is Cortana on the Microsoft operating system is used to spy on you. Okay, just like almost every single new feature that has been added to Windows over the years. But if we look at this subtitle here, as Microsoft builds out its suite of AI-powered tools, Cortana appears to have outlived its usefulness. So Cortana's dying off, but she's going to get replaced with like a couple dozen other AI tools that don't have as much soul. Because even though Cortana is a spyware tool. She at least had a little bit of soul, because in case you guys don't know, Cortana started off as Master Chief's AI in the Halo game, right? She's like this little assistant that kind of told you where to go and gave you information about your enemies and stuff like that. So for kids that played Halo, I mean, I played Halo a little bit as a kid, mostly Halo Combat Evolved online, but for the people that played that and, you know, then they grew up and used Windows and they had Cortana integrated in it, they probably LARPed for a little bit, like, oh, look at me, I'm Master Chief, I got Cortana as my AI, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, she's being replaced with a bunch of soulless AI. So Microsoft is ending support for Cortana in Windows in a support page spotted by XDA developers in Windows Central. The company says it will no longer support Cortana in Windows as a standalone app starting later this year. Cortana's discontinuation on Windows doesn't come as much of a surprise. During its build conference in May, Microsoft announced its new Windows Copilot tool, which will live in your taskbar and use AI to help you do everything and more that Cortana does once it's widely released. This includes summarizing content, rewriting text, asking questions, adjusting your computer settings, and more. Now, of course, in order for this thing to run, it's going to have to be very deeply integrated with your operating system. So you're basically going to have this Copilot AI in real time monitoring every single thing that you are doing inside of Windows 11. Yeah, you can see here, Microsoft announces Windows Copilot and AI personal assistant for Windows 11. So Microsoft is adding Copilot AI Assistant to Windows 11, much like the Copilot sidebars we've seen in Edge, Office apps, and even GitHub. All are controlled by Microsoft, by the way. Windows Copilot will be integrated directly into Windows 11 and available to open and use from the taskbar across all apps and programs. Once open, the Windows Copilot sidebar stays consistent across your apps, programs, and Windows, always available to act as your personal assistant, explains Panos Panay, Microsoft's head of Windows and devices. It makes every user a power user, helping you take action, customize your settings, and seamlessly connect across your favorite apps. The Windows Copilot can summarize content that you're viewing in apps, rewrite it, or even explain it. It looks very similar to the dialog box that's found in Bing Chat, so you can ask it general questions and things you might usually ask a search engine. So again, it's going to be integrated directly into everything you're doing in your operating system, okay? If it can summarize the content you're viewing in apps, that means it's able to read what you're looking at. That means it's looking at your screen. If it can rewrite it, that means not only is it looking at what you're reading, but it's understanding what you're reading and what you're looking at. And if it can explain it, that means it's also connected to the internet, because all of the, back-end information, all the data that these generative AIs are built on, or that these, not generative AI, but these machine learning, ChatGPT, all of these things are built on, is not stored locally on your machine. Okay, this is going to be stored on Microsoft servers in the cloud. So there's going to be a proprietary, okay, remember, this is proprietary software. It's not open source. You're not going to be able to see how Copilot works under the hood. A proprietary link, a proprietary connection between what you are seeing on the screen, the text that's on the screen, the images you're seeing on the screen, everything that you see on your computer screen in Microsoft's cloud. It's basically the telly screen from 1984. That's basically what we're looking at with Windows at this point. There's zero privacy that's left in this operating system, okay? Absolutely zero. So it says that it won't directly replace the search bar on the Windows 11 taskbar, and it's a separate Copilot button alongside it instead, much like how Cortana had its own dedicated space on the taskbar in Windows 10. Windows Copilot is a personal assistant, according to Microsoft, which sounds a lot like how Microsoft described Cortana as a personal productivity assistant. Since Copilot is integrated into Windows, you can do a lot of things like ask the assistant to adjust my settings so I can focus or take other actions on a PC. It's a lot more than the basic Bing Chat link that Microsoft added to the taskbar earlier this year. As Windows Copilot is built on the same foundations as Bing Chat, Microsoft is even allowing developers to extend plugins written for Bing or OpenAI's ChatGPT to this AI-powered assistant. So there you go. I mean, you'll be able to extend it. And of course, these extensions can be stolen by Microsoft and then just, rebranded, right? Oh, look at this. All these developers. We love open source because we love for people to develop our operating system for us. But we're not going to give you access to the core components of our operating system. We're not going to give you access to the underlying code of Copilot. We're not going to give you access to the training data that was used to train Copilot. Microsoft has been hinting about building AI features into Windows over the past 6 months after Panay claimed in January that AI is going to reinvent how you do everything in Windows. Many had been expecting Microsoft to wait until the next major version of Windows. No. Why wait until Windows 12, okay? Why wait for that? We already lied to people about Windows 10 being the last version of it. No, we're just gonna do whatever we please with Windows. In fact, we might just release another version, call it Windows 9. Yeah, what are you going to do then, huh? Stop us? You can't. We're Microsoft. Microsoft will now start testing Windows Copilot publicly in June before rolling it out more broadly to Windows 11 users. So there you go. It's being tested by the guinea pigs, and then eventually it's going to be sent out to everybody using Windows. Twitter's safety chief resigns after Musk criticizes decision to restrict a film. Okay, so this one's kind of interesting, right? The Twitter VP of Product, Trust and Safety, Ella Irwin, resigned from the company yesterday. She confirmed to Reuters and other news outlets. Irwin's departure came on the same day that Twitter owner Elon Musk criticized his staff for restricting What is a Woman?, a transphobic Daily Wire documentary that premiered in 2021. Irwin took over as head of Twitter's trust and safety team after November 2022 resignation of Yoel Roth. Let's see. What's the exact thing that they're getting upset over here? Yeah, so here it is. Internal dissent over misgendering. So Irwin's resignation seems to have been precipitated by the internal dissent over how to enforce Twitter's hateful conduct policy, which was recently edited to remove a ban on targeted misgendering or dead naming of transgender individuals. So, yeah, that's no longer a crime or no longer something that's really against Twitter's rules. And the policy still bans direct attacks on people on the basis of gender or gender identity, the dehumanizing of a group of people based on gender or gender identity, the hateful imagery that promotes hostility and malice against people based on gender identity. So it looks to me like Twitter is basically just changing their rule where you don't necessarily have to use whatever pronouns somebody puts in their about or whatever, okay? And if you misgender them, if you call someone who wants to be a she a he, you're not going to get banned from Twitter, which, I don't know, I think that's a good move. Musk, this was a mistake. A few hours after the comments, Musk stepped in. This was a mistake by many people at Twitter. It is definitely allowed, and he's referring to misgendering. Whether or not you agree with using someone's preferred pronouns, not doing so is at most rude and certainly breaks no laws. I should note that I do personally use someone's preferred pronouns just as I use someone's preferred name, simply from the standpoint of good manners. However, for the same reason, I object to rude behavior, ostracism, or threats of violence if the wrong pronoun or name is used. I mean, yeah, I can pretty much agree with that. I mean, if you're doing business and, you've got someone who's using different pronouns. Like, I ran into this a couple times when I was working at Geek Squad, especially because I was in Cambridge. And so, there's probably a lot more trans people per capita in Cambridge versus the rest of Boston or the rest of the United States. And I mean, most of the time it's not even an issue, right? Like I'm not someone who gets super hung up on, the whole like, oh, I'm gonna use whatever pronouns I want. You're not gonna control my speech. I don't really get hung up on that. But even if for some reason you really don't want to use someone's pronouns, like for me, I would say my principle when it comes to pronouns is I'm not gonna use z's and zers and like all these kind of like third gender or other gender, like kind of made up stuff that just came out in the past few years. I'm not going to use that. That's pretty much where I'm at with the whole gender thing now. But even if for some reason I don't want to call a she a he, or you don't want to call a she a he or whatever, you can just call people by their name. I mean, that's a pretty good, I guess, neutral approach. Because you don't want to get into a political discussion every time someone orders a sandwich, or I guess in my case, every time someone is like handing over a laptop to get extra RAM put in. It's like let's just make everyone's lives easier, and not take a stand here on at the Geek Squad counter. I kind of wonder what's going to end up happening to Twitter, because I feel like now, especially with TikTok being the hot new app that all the kids are on, that Twitter has kind of fizzled out. I haven't pulled up any statistics on how popular Twitter is, but I really feel like it just isn't as relevant now as it was, say, 5 years ago. I don't feel like anyone brags about how many followers they have on Twitter like they do on Instagram, or how many followers they have on TikTok. Selling the check marks, the blue check marks on Twitter, kind of seems like a mistake to me, because it's almost like a badge of shame if you bought that check mark. Like, damn, dude, you seriously paid Elon Musk $11 a month for that check mark for those few pixels? Do you realize that you could have just saved that for like that $11 a month for 6 or 7 months, and then you could buy yourself a new pair of Nikes? You could have some real check marks that are going to look fresh on your feet, IRL, when you step out into the world. Like, what's wrong with you, man? Who pays for this crap? Like, maybe it makes sense if you're some kind of e-celeb, or if you've got a business. Like, if I start tweeting about based.win to try to get people to buy stuff, it might make sense for me to buy the check mark as a business expense. I can write it off on my taxes. But if you're just an everyday Joe that's using Twitter for whatever you use it for, I think buying that check mark is goofy as hell. Twitter charging third-party applications to use their API is goofy as hell. I mean, I guess it makes sense from the valuation standpoint of a business to try and corral people onto your app and try to get people to, invest in it, or try to keep people from using third-party applications like Knitter. But the end user is who ends up suffering when companies do this crap, especially when the third-party clients are better than the official app or website itself. It seems to me like Elon is really just trying to squeeze the bird a bit too hard to get a profit out of it, or maybe he's just trying to break even at this point. I mean, he paid $55 billion for Twitter, right? He probably could have seen a faster turn of profits if he invested in building like 10 nuclear power plants across North America. Hell, Elon could probably fabricate a lot of the parts for a nuclear power plant himself too. Like, I'm not exactly sure, but I feel like if you could build parts for a spaceship or a satellite like SpaceX does, then you could pretty easily build the parts for a nuclear reactor. And then if you build a nuclear reactor, that's something that you can reap continued benefits for, because if the cities that your gigafactories are in just so happen to be in the, or if the cities that your reactor is in happen to be in the same cities as your gigafactory, then obviously the Elon Musk Power Company is going to give huge discounts to the Elon Musk factory. Maybe there's some anti-competition laws or something like that prevent Elon from controlling so many major industries at once in a particular area. Like, you got to think, if a company is in charge of the utilities of a city and they're a major employer, like when you got a small town that has a Walmart in it or a military base, it's one of those situations where the whole town works at that one employer. And Elon could have some control over the internet too through Starlink. So yeah, I guess I can see that being a anti-competitive legal issue if you were to start building nuclear reactors. And the only reason that I give the nuclear reactor example for him turning a faster profit is because it takes like a decade to turn a profit with building nuclear reactors because they're so expensive to build. But still, I don't see him making his money back from buying Twitter, at least not faster than if he built nuclear reactors, no matter how many of Twitter's features he puts behind a paywall. I just don't see that happening. And speaking of paywalls, it's time for me to pay the bills with an ad read. Based.win is my online store where you can buy my merch and more than a dozen electronic accessories. But what makes my store different than every other YouTuber out there who tries to build their own online shop is that you can shop with cryptocurrency. Let's say you're crypto rich. You were smart enough to get that fake internet money before it was worth hundreds of dollars per coin. You can spend it with me to get those products. No credit card is required. But you know, if you don't have any crypto, if you're a no coiner, that's fine. I mean, it's fine in theory. Long term, it's probably not fine. But you can still shop with me with your credit card. Or better yet, use your credit card to buy some Monero right now. Monero's price is down to the lowest it's been in like at least 30 days, maybe 60 or 90 days, which means that future products on Base.Win are currently at a discount. And that's an additional discount on top of the 5% off that I give for using Monero on Base.Win store-wide. So go get you some XMR, spend a little bit today on Base.Win, and the next bull cycle, your XMR is going to go a whole lot further on Base.Win. Again, that's BASED.WIN. We've got another piece of Reddit news here. U.S. Supreme Court declines to hear a bid to sue Reddit over child porn. The U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday declined to hear a bid by child pornography victims to overcome a legal shield for internet companies in a case involving a lawsuit accusing Reddit Inc. of violating federal law by failing to rid the discussion website of this illegal content. The justices turned away the appeal of a lower court's decisions to dismiss the proposed class action lawsuit on the grounds that Reddit was shielded by a U.S. state statute called Section 230, which safeguards internet companies from lawsuits for content posted by users, but has an exception for claims involving child sex trafficking. The Supreme Court on May 19th sidestepped an opportunity to narrow the scope of Section 230 immunity in a separate case. Okay, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996 protects interactive computer services by ensuring they cannot be treated as the publisher or speaker of information provided by users. The Reddit case explored the scope of a 2018 amendment to Section 230 called the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act, FOSTA, which allows lawsuits against internet companies if the underlying claim involves child sex trafficking. Yeah, so I mean, it's not really a surprise that so much of this smut is going on Reddit. I mean, how many cases have we heard of where different websites that have a whole lot of porn on them, or on some cases are even fully dedicated to porn, like Pornhub had underage content creators on there? It happens. That's why you need to have, if you're a parent, you need to have this digital literacy, okay? I mean, if your kid, whether they're being groomed or whether, for whatever reason, they just decide to create this content on their own and put it out there on the internet or put it out there on the dark web, like, that's something that you should probably have some idea if that's going on in your household as a parent. And the only way that you can even begin to know something like this is going on is to have that digital literacy, to be able to monitor traffic on your own network, okay? Because look, that's not, even though the government is going to spy on all of us, they're not going to do it to protect your kids, okay? They'll say it's to protect your kids, but it's always a lie. All right, Reddit will say that they're taking measures to try and protect your kids, but clearly on their platform, there's all kinds of predators in these hidden communities that are trading these pictures and these videos back and forth. Reddit isn't able to stop them. The government isn't able to stop them. You have to be the one to make sure your kids are not being exploited in these communities. Same thing goes for Instagram. So the Wall Street Journal did this story, which we can't even read because it's paywall, but they're talking about how Instagram is the glue, I guess, that's connecting these major pedophile networks. This is something I've suspected for a while because, like I said earlier, I watch a lot of the predator catching channels, like the Chris Hansen sort of YouTube spin-off things. And probably 8 or 9 times out of 10, the decoys that are catching these predators are on Instagram. Okay, they'll use AI to make them look like a little girl. I mean, it's easy to do that. Even one of them, like I think Tommy with Colorado Ped Patrol was saying that he just takes a picture of himself. You know, he's like a 40-something-year-old man, you know, like gray hair and his goatee and stuff like that. But through the power of AI, you can, I guess, first use that to change the gender, and then there's like an age thing where he can use it to make him look like a 12-year-old girl or something like that. And then he just goes on Instagram, waits for these people to message him first, waits for them to commit all these felonies, and then he confronts them. So again, if your kid's on Instagram, you got to keep an eye out for this, because this is one of the primary platforms that people are grooming children on. And again, Meta is not going to do anything effective to prevent this. The government is not going to do anything effective to prevent this. It's on you. And then we have this story about Amazon is in talks to offer free mobile service to its US Prime members. Loyalty perk could include $10, possibly free unlimited plans. So Amazon has been talking with wireless carriers about offering this low-cost or possibly free nationwide mobile phone service to Prime subscriptions. I can tell you right now, if it's going to be free, it's going to be all kinds of spooky, all right? If it's free, that means you are the product. So the company is negotiating with Verizon, T-Mobile, and Dish Network to get the lowest possible wholesale prices that would let it offer Prime membership wireless plans for $10 a month, or possibly for free, and bolster loyalty among its biggest spending customers, the people said, who requested anonymity to discuss a private matter. And Dish shares jumped 8.3% in pre-market trading on Friday, and Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile fell 3% because of, disinformation and other market factors. Now, if Amazon is going to be responsible for all your mobile data, they need to be able to secure it. They need to be more responsible with your mobile data than they have been with your Ring data. Because Amazon is going to be paying a $38 million settlement over allegations of hoarding children's data through Ring and through these other security cameras. Amazon has agreed to pay a US, what does it say? US 25 million, and then it says 38 million civil penalty to settle the U.S. Federal Trade Commission's allegations it violated a child privacy law and deceived parents by keeping, for years, children's voice and location data recorded by its popular Alexa voice assistant. Okay, so this isn't even Ring. The little headline picture tricked me because it's of a Ring doorbell. Separately, the company agreed to pay $5.8 million in customer refunds for alleged privacy violations involving its doorbell camera Ring. Okay, so it is a combination of both Alexa and Ring. See, Amazon's got so many spyware products, it's hard for me to even keep up with all of them. It also obliges the tech giant to delete certain data collected by its internet-connected digital assistant, which people use for everything from checking the weather to playing games and queuing up music. Amazon's history of misleading parents, keeping children's recordings indefinitely, and flouting parents' deletion request violates COPA and sacrificed privacy for profits. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty spooky that this is what's going on. And I mean, there were some examples. I don't know if it's quoted in here, but there were, yeah, here we go. So, this talks about how, in one example, the FTC says a Ring employee viewed thousands of videos from at least 81 different female users. So this is a Ring employee, right? An Amazon employee at the end of the day, who's going through like feed to feed. It's basically that that scene from South Park where you had the TSA agent that's like beaten off with some lotion, and he's sitting around this giant array of TVs that have access to these different camera feeds of people pooping, right? This is the same kind of thing, man, except it's real. It's not the TSA, it's Amazon instead. You know, so that's the only part that's kind of off. Between June and August 2017, the employee looked through the videos for at least an hour a day on hundreds of occasions. Another employee noticed it and reported to their supervisor, who allegedly told them that it was normal for an engineer to view so many accounts. Only after the supervisor noticed that the male employee was only viewing females of pretty girls did the supervisor escalate the report of misconduct. It's perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal for, you know, an engineer to be viewing video feeds of prepubescent girls. And, well, they didn't say prepubescent. They said pretty girls. So it's perfectly normal to be looking at feeds of pretty girls as they're undressing. And, you know, it's perfectly normal for your keyboard to start banging under your desk as you're viewing these videos. That's how engineering is done, okay? That sound of pants jiggling and whatnot, that's the sound of engineering. That's the sound of invention going on. As a result of the incident, Ring narrowed its employees' access rights in September 2017 so that customers had to consent to customer service agents accessing the videos. However, Ring continued to allow hundreds of other employees and third-party contractors access to all video data, regardless of whether they actually needed it in order to perform their job. So they, you know, they went through a measure to try to stop it, but it was ineffective. You know, so once again, these prepackaged proprietary CCTV systems like the Ring camera, okay, these Amazon Alexa assistants that are absolutely proprietary, are not for your benefit. They are for Amazon and other third-party employees that pay Amazon to exploit you. Plain and simple, okay? So if you buy one of these, there's a good chance someone's going to spy on you. There's a good chance they'll spy on your wife. There's a good chance they'll spy on your husband. There's a good chance they'll spy on your children. Don't put rings inside your house, okay? Like if you're gonna show the whole world what's going on in your house, you might as well stream it on Twitch, okay? You might as well create your own version of like Fish Tank or whatever, and then that way at least you can make some money off of it instead of weirdos just spying on you. All right, so here is something that's kind of cool. I think we'll try to, this might be the last couple topics we look at because we've been going for a while, guys. I think we're close to 3 hours in this podcast. So anyway, Japan to launch a satellite made of wood in 2024. A satellite made of wood could be launched into space in 2024. The high durability of wood in space was recently tested and confirmed at the International Space Station by an international group of scientists led by those from the Kyoto University. Their experiment showed wood samples tested at the ISS for durability underwent minimal deterioration and maintain good stability. Preliminary inspection, including strength test and crystal structure analysis of the wood samples, was also done once they were brought back to Earth from the ISS by Japanese astronaut Kyoichi Wakata. Despite extreme conditions in space, including temperature changes and exposure to intense cosmic rays and dangerous solar particles for 10 months, tests found no changes in the samples, such as cracking, warping, peeling, or surface damage, according to a recent Kyoto University statement. Wow. Wooden satellites. That actually sounds really cool. The only thing I wonder about with a wooden satellite is if it does end up breaking apart, would that create more shrapnel than a metal satellite? Because when I think of a wooden structure breaking apart, or especially when I think of it exploding, I think of a lot of splintering, which I think could create a lot of really dangerous space debris. So I guess the question is, if a wooden structure does end up splintering in space, is the wood going to be more or less dangerous than metal? I figure if it's going fast enough, it really doesn't matter what the material is made out of or how big it is, because it's going to have a lot of energy when it hits you either way, okay? If there's a wood chip traveling 10,000 feet per second and a pebble traveling 10,000 feet per second, it probably doesn't matter when it hits you what it is, because either way, you're going to freaking die. So yeah, this is something that I'm definitely going to keep an eye on the research of, because I think wind satellites sound really, really cool. And let's take a look at some more based clean energy. New Jersey utilities decided to float solar panels on a reservoir which powers the water treatment plant. So the New Jersey Canoe Brook water treatment plant produces 14 million gallons of drinking water a day. And let's see, each of these gallons weighs about 8 pounds. So yeah, obviously they need a lot of water or a lot of energy to move all this stuff around. So the water utility partnered with NJR Clean Energy Ventures, the renewable energy subsidiary of the natural gas firm New Jersey Resources, for a solution. NJR Clean Energy Ventures built a vast array of solar panels, linked them together, and placed them on the surface of the water at Canoe Brook Reservoir. The company says that the 17-acre solar array, consisting of 16,510 solar panels, is the largest floating solar array in North America, about twice the size of the next largest facility. Wow, that's pretty cool. An array of floating panels on a body of water in Sayreville, New Jersey, owned by that municipality. Okay, so wow, New Jersey is like the state that does floating solar panel arrays then. The Millburn facility, which began operating in January, produces 8.9 megawatts of electricity, enough to power 14,000 homes. But the power doesn't go to residential customers. Instead, it provides 95% of the water treatment plant's substantial energy requirements. So they're pretty much powering themselves now. That's really cool. And again, they're using a ton of water. They're using a ton of electricity. I mean, they've got to pump millions of gallons of water, right? That's a lot of power, man. So long popular in Asia, floating solar arrays started to catch on in the US. A study published in the journal Nature Sustainability in March found that thousands of cities, more than 6,000 in 124 countries, could generate an amount equal to all of their electricity demand using floating solar, making it a climate solution to be taken seriously. I mean, yeah, because you think about it, a body of water is flat, right? It's a large, flat piece of, well, not land, but water, okay? So if you put a floating solar panel on there, and especially if we're talking about a body of water that doesn't have tides, okay? Put floating solar panels on there, and if there's definitely towards the middle, they're going to be able to collect a lot of energy. And you got to think that the water probably reflects some of that too, so it might reflect some of it back into the solar panel, so that also helps to harvest even more electricity. And if you got floating solar panels on a private piece of water, it's not in anybody's way. And let's see. Well, neither company said how much it cost to build it. But let's see, is there anything else here? Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it doesn't say how much it costs to build it. And then there's also some other benefits to doing this, because putting the solar panels atop plastic floats that are moored to the bottom of the reservoir helps reduce evaporation of water into the air. I mean, this is a reservoir, so obviously we want to keep this water so people can drink it. And the temperature of the water helps to cool the solar panels, enabling them to work more efficiently. So you see, we've got this sort of symbiotic relationship going on between the solar panels and with the water. I'd also imagine that having all these panels there probably keeps birds away and stuff too, because you probably don't want birds going in your water and pooping. You probably don't want ducks hanging out in your water, swimming around. So yeah, this is this is a very based way to do clean energy. I like it. All right, this is going to be our last story. The Florida man who sold $100 million plus in counterfeit network gear. 39-year-old Florida man pleaded guilty Tuesday to selling hundreds of millions of dollars of counterfeit Cisco gear to unsuspecting schools, hospitals, government agencies, and the military. Oh no, they're buying fake. Oh, and look, so schools, government agencies, and military, that's all tax money. So that means we're buying fake network gear, guys. If you paid your taxes this year, part of it went towards fake network gear. According to the U.S. Justice Department, between 2013 and 2022, Honor Aksoy, based in Miami, founded at least 19 companies in New Jersey and Florida and launched 15 Amazon and 10 eBay storefronts from which he peddled tens of thousands of low-quality or faulty networking devices guised up to look like new or official Cisco equipment. Man, this guy was really running it up. This guy, he made a ton of money. I'm almost impressed by this. The goods, which were imported from sellers in China and Hong Kong, were often loaded with pirated Cisco software and packaged within Cisco boxes bearing Cisco labels and stickers. Documentation was also made to look legitimate. You know, the thing that I wonder is how many of these pirated routers, these routers that are running this pirated firmware, how many of them were hacked, right? How many of them were running firmware that had some kind of backdoor that allowed the CCP to just take over your router? Which you got to think, if you take over the router, you effectively can control the networking abilities of every device on the network. I mean, this is pretty serious stuff here. As you might expect, the equipment was inferior to actual Cisco kits. Some of the fakes performed poorly or flamed out quickly, and in some cases, the DOJ notes the equipment resulted in tens of thousands of dollars in damages to users' networks and operations. All the while, Aksoy's businesses collected at least $100 million, much of which he pocketed. Aksoy's activities drew the attention of the Customs and Border Patrol, or Customs and Border Protection, which reportedly seized 180 shipments of counterfeit goods shipped to companies owned by Aksoy between 2014 and 2022. When confronted about these goods, Aksoy reportedly submitted false documents under the alias Dave Durden. That even sounds like a fake name, man. Come on, Dave Durden, that's not much more clever than Henry Shackelford. The influx of counterfeit networking goods didn't go unnoticed by Cisco. Between 2014 and 2019, the network giant issued 7 cease and desist letters to Aksoy. On at least 2 occasions, the Justice Department says the accused responded to inquiries with fraudulent and or forged documents. Despite pressure from the CBP and Cisco's lawyers, the Justice Department claims Axoy did little to hide his activities and continued to import and then fraudulently sell counterfeit network equipment sourced from the same suppliers. In January 2021, agents raided Axoy's warehouse and seized 1,156 counterfeit devices with an estimated retail value of more than $7 million. However, it wasn't until last June that Axoy was arrested and charged on one count of conspiracy to traffic counterfeit goods and to commit mail and wire fraud, 3 counts of mail fraud, 4 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of trafficking in counterfeit goods. Axoy has since pleaded to lesser charges and faces between 48 and 78 months in prison, while he appeared in court on November 6. Under the terms of the plea deal, he was required to forfeit $15 million in illicit gains and pay restitution to his customers. Okay, hold on a second. This is a potential career move. He made $100 million plus in counterfeit network gear, right? And who knows whether this guy paid taxes or not, right? He probably did. He probably would have gotten picked up before that if he wasn't paying taxes. But they're saying that he pocketed much of this, so we got to know how much he actually grossed, or how much he actually pocketed. Because having to pay $15 million back out of $100 million, that's not really a whole lot. That's only 15%. And then he's going in for 48 to 78 months in prison. That's a bit of time. I mean, 4 years, 4 to 6 years. That's a good little bit of time. And, I mean, he's got good paperwork that he's going in on. And, let's see. Is this federal? I think it is federal, yeah, because he did multiple... Okay, yeah, so he's going to club fed for a few years. Maybe it's not really worth it. I mean, I guess it depends on, like, where this guy is in life. I mean, if you're one of those, like, family men who you just want to make sure your kids are okay, and, you manage to put away tens of millions of dollars, which is enough for them for the rest of their life, maybe it's a good move. Go to prison for a little bit, work out, convert to Islam, and get out, and you're still a multimillionaire. It's not too bad of a way to go. So there you go. You guys got a couple of ways you can make a bunch of money. You can make a bunch of money selling fake networking equipment to people. You can make a bunch of money as, I guess, an OnlyFans manager of these new, all these new places that they're getting involved in. You can just use ChatGPT to become a lawyer now. That looks pretty easy. And you can scrape Reddit's NSFW subreddits to create your own NSFW sites. Chuck's website. We'll just call it that. Chuck's website. Looking forward to it. And Reddit losing out on a bunch of money. So it looks like that's about 3 hours for this Libre podcast. I think that's a good time to end it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to like and comment to hack the algorithm. Follow me on Odyssey and shop at base.win so that I can continue to bring you more episodes of the Libre podcast. Have a great rest of your day.